Really Big Show with Czek and Iain Burns.
Well, it's Friday, May 15th. I'm Czek. With me, Iain Burns. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. A little cloudy, a little overcast, but beautiful day though. Nation's capital out there, Mr. Burns. How is it looking?
Still a bit cloudy. Some patches of blue, and there's going to be a high of 15 right now, but it's going to go up to 19.
Cloudy with a chance of meatballs, I guess. Eh? I've said that too many times, I guess. The ferret egg farmers, that one did pretty good. People loving the ferret egg farming. We got some feedback to share with you. First of all, again, we appreciate the feedback. Somebody's saying here, watch the show every day. That's great. We love that. And a lot of comments on our interview with Brian Isted. Lots of comments. A lot of former CAF members as well. A lot of senior people as well. So it's pretty interesting there. So that interview with Brian got a lot of reaction. We'll have Brian back on as well. And then you guys are literally the fooching best. I like that. Did I say that right? Fooching best?
Fooching.
And then somebody said your ferret egg example is pure gold. No pun intended. But the big news
We
and the
don't
big
write these jokes, we don't write them beforehand. Purely improvised.
No yoke on there's no yokes that are written ahead of time. No yokes on you. That one is right there.
That's a rough one.
That just proves how they happen. But Carney, the headline this morning, Carney says, pay the piper if you want prosperity. That's basically what he said, pay the piper. That's probably the clearest language he's said on this Pathways thing in 14 months. There is no pipeline without Pathways. And then the next question should be, is there a conflict of interest? But no, not so much. Not so much on that, hey? No pathway, or no pipeline with no pathway. And Carney has made the conditions for allowing Alberta to build another oil pipeline to the BC coast abundantly clear, emphasizing on Thursday, no pathway, no pathways, no pipeline. It means Canada's much pushed forward with its experimental approach to fossil fuel production, including that $16.5 billion Pathways carbon capture project and ratcheting carbon tax that no other major supplier supports, including a former Liberal MP that's going to be on next week, I think, with us, Martha Findlay. She's going to be on with
Martha Findlay.
She's going to be on with us next week, and she was one of the key people instrumental in kind of like setting that up. She said that the world has changed. The times have changed. It's no longer even viable, never mind a necessity. The world has changed. And we've had expert after expert say in Canada that it is just unreasonable to punish Canadian oil when nobody else is doing it. We had John McKenzie, the Cenovus, saying it just makes it uncompetitive for Canadian oil. And David Eby yesterday even said it himself, that if Alberta gets a special deal, it'll make British Columbia uncompetitive with Alberta. But then if you just carry that comment that he made to the rest of the world, if Alberta has a carbon tax and the rest of the world doesn't, then David Eby's statement should transfer over to how is Alberta oil going to be competitive with the rest of the world?
Doesn't do that though, does he?
No, he doesn't make that. He doesn't make that step, right? He doesn't make that extra step. But I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's pretty obvious. And they're going to make this announcement today. I mean, shortly, I imagine they're going to be standing at the podium here. Do you know when they're supposed to be talking in Alberta today?
I believe it's 11:35 Mountain Time. That's just off the top of my head.
Likely while we're on, they're going to be. I mean, a lot of it's already been front run anyway. I don't know what new will be announced there. And I still wonder how Daniel Smith is going to sell this to the Albertans. That this is going to be a tough one.
But he's also going to appear at 1:25 Calgary time. So the announcement is 11:35 a.m. obviously Calgary time, and then he's going to do a brief media availability. He says at 1:25.
Pierre Poilievre coming out though with his plan if he was prime minister, and it would have no carbon taxes. He would unleash the beast. He would approve Alberta's pipeline within 100 days of receiving it, get shovels in the ground, and no taxes. Completely different, eh? Alberta oil still under the control of a tax grift. And it's like the best of a worse deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the thing, like they've been negotiating this deal. And you and I talked about this weeks ago, and we said, this is likely what's going to be happening. They're going to, it was a no-brainer, really. They're going to reduce the industrial carbon tax and extend the timeline so that Daniel Smith could take it back and say, well, maybe the Liberals won't even be in power then as industrial carbon tax escalates here. Maybe the Conservatives will be in power and there will be no carbon tax. But in the meantime, pay the piper. Pay the piper. But it still doesn't have like a pipeline. Do you know what I mean? If you listen to a lot of the other stuff being announced today, oil is still, I don't even know if it's second on the priority list, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Where does it fit in the priority list? Way, way down there. It's almost like, well, if you're going to just be so noisy about it here, you can have it, but you got to do this, 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 and this. Then you got to pay this, 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 and this. And then you can have.
I think one of the interesting things about what Poilievre said here is publish a plan to allow oil production to grow by 2.5 million barrels a day. That would make Canada, it would be about 8 or 8.5 million barrels a day then, if that was actually achieved. That would make Canada just about one of the big four. They would have to change it from big three to big four. I mean, that would make Canada nearly as important as Saudi Arabia in the world oil markets. It's strange to think. I've thought about this before, and I've heard like more obscure people talk about it. Danielle Smith's talked about it a couple of times, but I've never really seen it like put on the table in that way. Isn't that so strange? And I think that's just an indication of how weird this country is and how weird the elite in this country is, because there's an absolute bounty. There's an enormous amount of oil there in Alberta, in the oil sands. It's not like we're restricted by reserves. It's really just how much can you be bothered to build out and pump. And yet it's never a conversation. Our golden ferret egg. It's never discussed, is it? Like, no, I'm going to get to 9 million. No, I'm going to get to 10. In a sane, ordinary country, they would try to outbid each other for how huge the oil industry was going to be. And yet in this country, I mean, do people even know that Canada's that close? That Canada actually has the potential, if it really wanted to leapfrog Saudi Arabia in oil production? That could theoretically happen. Do people even know that?
So basically what Poilievre is saying there is, he must be watching our show a lot, unleash the beast. Basically unleash the beast and allow Canada to become an energy superpower, and give the world what it is screaming for right now, energy. Give the world what it's screaming for, and also give prosperity to Canadians. Take Canadians out of food bank lineups, and also bring many really good paying jobs and bring health to the economy, where we're building hospitals and schools and all kinds of stuff. It is just prosperity. If you even look at what even this choked goose right now is going to likely turn Alberta's $9.5 billion shortfall into a surplus. Canada could be a surplus nation once again if you unleash the beast. Right now we are a debtor nation, and Mark Carney is talking about selling our assets, like our airports and our ports, off to foreign bodies that have unleashed their beast and are going to use their profits, their oil profits, to buy our assets. You can't make a stupider economic plan than that. Like, I don't know how you would make a dumber plan than that. Like, basically you're saying, well, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, if Poilievre's listening, as you say, or if the Conservative Party is listening, if you want to be cheeky, here's an idea for you. Cast your mind back to George H.W. Bush and the Gulf War, first Iraq War, and what happened in the aftermath of that war when the UN, we like the UN, don't we? The big man, Mark Carney, used to work for the UN, so I think that's an approved organization. They created a project, a program called Oil for Food. Do you remember that? Oil for Food. That's what Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives should do. They should say, our strategy is oil for food. because Canada now is in such a desperate food crisis and hunger crisis. We're going to sell our oil and we're going to buy food with it. That's where we've got. And how could Mark Carney disagree with such a proposal, since it was, that was organized by the United Nations? We love the UN.
And a lot of this liberal policy, climate extremist policy, was built around the IPCC. Like some of those scenarios where the world was going to literally turn into an inferno. Elizabeth May kind of calls that out sometimes. Many of the Liberal MPs, Stephen Guilbeault, Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, like that the world is actually going to light on fire here. Greta Thunberg, how dare you? Well, the IPCC admits now, still having enough trouble with that word, apocalyptic climate scenarios are implausible, meaning most of the media scare stories over the last 15 years, officially junk. And this is put out by the food professor. Activists, climate scientists, journalists, and net zero obsessed politicians are in shock following an official admission from the IPCC that a set of key assumptions promoting the climate crisis in 2011 are implausible. All that being said, no adjustment to the climate extremism here in Canada. Still, Elizabeth May stands on the podium there and says the world's on fire. What was the MP? It's not Mark Miller, the other guy that's no longer with the Liberals.
Mark Holland.
Mark Holland, the other Mark, the two Marks, said that you couldn't even drive your car across Canada for fear that the world would light on fire. And then he goes and gets a job at the Toronto Fair there, and he encourages everybody to drive their cars to Toronto because now he's got a different job. It's just like, you can't even make this stuff up. And Justin Trudeau said, doesn't matter if you can't afford your rent or your food, we're fighting a bigger problem. As he jets around the world now, drinking out of plastic cups and sits on big yachts and just burns more fossil fuels than you could ever, in a weekend, than you could ever probably do in your lifetime. Yet the policy's the same, basically. Like, somebody should just slide the report. That's also a Pierre Poilievre, because there's just slide the report across the desk and say, what do you make of this? What do you make of this?
What's mad, the maddest thing of all, and I said this is all about the IPCC, because these are the models that the IPCC uses. So there's been a change to the model. If people don't know, it's just like a very expensive sort of computer program, basically, isn't it? Where they input lots of data and it sort of like figures it out, like in Star Trek or something, makes a few beeps and then it tells you. Those models are now showing something very different to what they previously showed for the business as usual case. But I just want to say that even the previous business as usual cases, which are like mad anyway, and not going to happen anyway, even they weren't that bad. I have to emphasize, they really weren't. It didn't mean the end of the world. It never really meant an apocalypse. The IPCC has never said that we're facing the apocalypse. It's literally never. Which is I find that so remarkable. Like, when I actually learned that fact myself, I felt such a profound sense of betrayal. I felt like I'd been betrayed by so many people who should have known better, in the press, in politics, even in academia and science. Just so much deceit. And that's why that experience that I had is why I really urge people to try and read the IPCC reports themselves and just look at what they really say, because it's never been as bad as they let on. But now it's even less bad. So it's good. You think of countries that are or electorates, but also leaderships, countries, whatever, around the world, who are right now, there's a trade-off between not just prosperity and climate change or environment stuff, but survival almost. There's a real trade-off in standard of living and the environment. The two go head to head. They're going to look at stuff like this and they're just going to say, absolutely no way. They were already reluctant, but now they're just nah, obviously not. But as you said, Canada's political class and the media, the sort of the chattering classes, they're still completely sold on history. But it's not just for climate change, is it? It's things like all the social movements that seem to peak during COVID. barely a day goes by that I don't see some sort of story in CTV or CBC, and I just think, what the hell is 2021? Have I just like walked into a time warp? Have I just fallen into a time machine? But no, it's just Canada. Canada, or Canada's vanguard, its elite, are so old-fashioned. They're so behind the times that they're still operating like it's the New York Times newsroom in 2021. It's just like, obviously that extends, doesn't it, to climate change and everything else.
They are the barnacles that feed the glue for the barnacles to stay on that and still scream like crazy, like still putting out stories. Elizabeth May not challenged by the elite reporters that get to go up there and ask questions where she spews that nonsense. And sure enough, CBC, they're not even going to play it because it's just, you've heard this nonsense over and over again. But CBC, of course, trots out a climate extremist here, Canadian taxpayer-funded climate activist, the Canadian Climate Institute, 50 million plus of Canadian taxpayer dollars. We fund these people that stop our prosperity. We literally take our money out of our pocket, give it to them, and then they go on government-funded media. So between the two of them, using your tax dollars to stop prosperity in Canada so that the elite can just roll in the money, just bankroll themselves. It's just crazy. You're basically funding the propaganda that basically chokes Canada's economic prosperity off. I mean, there's no denying it. The evidence is right there in front of you. Just look at a little piece of evidence. Alberta was projecting a $9.5 billion deficit. Oil prices shot up. It's now going to do likely a $6 billion profit as the oil is choked. Imagine if you unleash the beast, what Alberta could do for the nation. And if BC got off its windmill fantasies, imagine what BC could contribute. It's Alberta and Saskatchewan that are basically choked. Well, the rest of the country gets nothing but subsidy after subsidy after subsidy. You know what I mean? Between Quebec and Ontario, getting corporate welfare for all the stuff that happens out there. $50 billion of wasted corporate subsidies on battery plants and EV nonsense here in Canada. We're going to show you some of the receipts for that too. Just literally choking the golden goose while promoting ferret eggs, which is basically a really good analogy. And we're going to use it again because like it's a fantasy. It's literally a fantasy. And then the people just taking government money to start ferret farming for eggs.
It is a good analogy. But I mean, this particular ferret farmer here from the Canadian Climate Institute, just for a minute, if you can, put yourself in his shoes and in the shoes of people at organizations, pressure groups, whatever like this, all across the Western world. They're staring down the barrel of a gun here. This is like life or death for them. And it's got nothing to do with climate change. This is, am I going to have a job that pays this much money? Am I going to have a prestigious position in society? Am I going to have a platform? People are going to listen to me? Am I going to have anything to do on a Tuesday morning? Am I going to have a reason to put my suit on and drive to work or whatever it is, drive downtown? Because for them, this is like, and I'm convinced this applies not just to climate change people, but all of these people, their entire livelihoods, their professional lives are bound up in some crisis or other. And they need that crisis to continue. Otherwise, they lose their professional lives. And it isn't just professional lives. They basically lose their lives as they know it. And they have to start again. So
everything. Why
is this dolt coming on here and bleating on CBC, things that, talking absolute bollocks? Well, because he wants his job. He wants to keep earning money. He wants to be able to buy that new pair of shoes that he's got in mind. He wants to go on vacation in the summer. That's what it's about. And that's why they are so separated from reality, because it's not about reality, is it? It's about bread and butter. It's about them and their lives.
Funding, because they were doling out funding like crazy. All these DEI things too, all about funding.
Yep.
All about funding.
You can't get funding for your anti-racism organization or whatever it is if there isn't infinity racism everywhere. Yes. So lo and behold, these people bounce around talking about how, everyone's Hitler and whatnot. These people are incentivized to do this stuff, and it's like training hamsters in a lab or something like that to do things. It's like the Pavlovian game. But we've given them these crazy incentive structures, and we've sent them off to do damage to our society in their own interest. They've been incentivized to impoverish and damage this society, this culture, the whole Western civilization for their own paychecks. Now that really is mad, isn't it?
And the sadder thing is, while the Canadian electorate watches it happen and sticks their elbows up and says, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like that my neighbor next door there can't put food on their table. I like it that they can't put gas in their car. It's just amazing. There is a lot of elite that are making money off of it. Again, a quarter of the population making money right out of the government coffers. Like your taxpayer, like it is the Canadian economy has become a parasitic economy, and the host, many of the more wealthy hosts are leaving, and then so that leaves the middle class host that is just getting choked and choked and choked, and because they just bleed the taxpayer. It's absolutely atrocious. Here's the CIBC finally finding its voice too, because the banks were actually forced in this net zero alliance and ESG stuff and GFANS by Carney, who's one of the creators of all this stuff, and they basically choked off investment into the oil and gas sector and resource sector. And now he's saying Canada needs to move faster on major energy and infrastructure projects, warning that delays have weakened the country's export capacity, reducing pricing power and damage its reputation for getting things built. Really? Thanks, Captain Obvious. Where was your voice a while ago while this is all happening? Well, Canada was burning down. Where was your voice, Mr. CIBC? And anybody that could look, if you had a half of a brain in financial acumen, you would look at the TSX and say, what the heck happened to the TSX? Why are the 6 banks in the top 10 in market cap in Canada? What happened to all our energy companies and our resource companies? What happened? These are the wealth takers, not the wealth creators. But, like the government and them will say, oh, well, a lot of people have stock in CIBC and Royal Bank, so that's good. They don't create the wealth. They take from wealth. They are a parasite as well. They facilitate investment, but they've been choking it off here in Canada, so they bear some of that responsibility because they didn't fight back. They bear some responsibility in the trucker convoy for just like obeying freezing bank accounts without enough pushback, even though that was 2 courts have said that invocation of the Emergencies Act was illegal. And we're waiting for a Supreme Court decision whether they'll hear it. And it's getting odd. We'll have to get an update from John Carpe when he's on again. They only have so long to decide whether the Supreme Court will hear that case. And we'll get an update on that.
And compare and contrast if you've got the patience. I don't blame you if you don't have the patience, but if you've got nothing else to do and you're feeling very tolerant, compare and contrast the media class's reaction to the 2 rulings that the Liberals violate the Constitution by invoking the Emergencies Act. Compare that to this quashing of the Alberta separation petition. Look at the way that the media class has discussed that as just being like, they're overcome with joy. They're delighted, aren't they? They can't believe they're looking. It's all about, oh yeah, these silly separatists, this silly Danielle Smith, she's going to have to do something now. She's in trouble. But when the Liberal Party, the federal government, was found to have violated the Constitution by 2 different courts, that somehow just dribbles away, doesn't it? It just dribbles away down the drain. We forget about it. Rather than coming out and saying the obvious, that was an astonishing, extraordinary, grotesque abuse of power by the party that's still now in power.
Somebody just said on here that he only has $100 left in his wallet, a Gen X here, until next payday. It is these policies that deny prosperity in Canada. It's these policies where they reach deep into your pocket and take half your money out and then waste it. Absolutely waste it and fund these climate extremists on bad models, and then fund the CBC to basically spew misinformation, disinformation, and then send money overseas. $25 billion almost to the Ukraine. How much for gender-affirming rice and ski hills in Lebanon? Just like, it's just amazing, and more money just wasted. Anita Nan she loves stepping out of the podium and giving away money like it was candy. Your money. Canada now a debtor nation that is now going to sell its assets off to foreign countries. I think you can't even write this. And here it is. This guy says he has $100 left in his pocket because the Liberals deny prosperity to Canadians. They deny prosperity to Canadians. There's all the evidence you need to see. John McKenzie said it yesterday from Synovus. No other country is doing this. And yet Canada, the Liberals will tell you that it's almost like the whole world is doing this, yet provide no evidence of it. And the media just, okay. And here's the UAE showing you how to get it done. You think they're worried about carbon capture and that? They say they're going to get around the Hormuz Strait. One of Canada's rival oil producers has announced it will build a new pipeline and complete it by, what's this, next year? They're going to actually, they're going to start building it and have it done by next year? United Arab Emirates said it will accelerate construction of a cross-country conduit to bypass the Strait of Hormuz, which it has effectively closed off since it. How is that possible that they're going to actually build a pipeline in a year?
Double export capacity as well.
And it takes 2 years in Canada just to get to the point where, well, once we say we're going to build a pipeline, it'll be 2 years just to get the permitting done. It'll be it's 14 months already with nothing. And then another 2 years once you get approval. And then the CIBC guy says it takes too long. What's that?
It's no mystery why Canada gets beaten on a lot of projects, is it? I mean, it's just like if you see two companies, it's like BlackBerry versus Apple or something. It's like, yeah, if another company, or country in this case, is more nimble, quicker, cleverer, hungrier, wants it more than you, it's going to get it. You're not going to get it. And this is consequential because they're going to sell this to Asia. That's their primary customer.
Yeah.
And that's also our prospective primary customer. We keep hearing it's all about Asia. I mean, they'll buy whatever they get. This also emphasizes the fact that, there's something that we've said many times. They don't care where the oil came from. They don't care who made it, how they made it. They just care that it's nice and black and gooey and that you can turn it into petroleum and drive cars with it. That's all they care about.
I have to give it some balance here because I'm sure that nobody's going to buy this oil from the UAE because they're going to insist on carbon capture. Who would buy it? Everybody. That's who'd buy it. Everybody.
Or they're going to insist on a carbon tax, which the UAE doesn't have. I think they actually have got some kind of oil efficiency program, you would call it carbon capture, in the UAE, but just like every other major producer of oil, they do not have a carbon tax. They don't voluntarily hobble their own golden goose. They don't cut the legs off their golden goose. And nobody cares.
When you write a contract with somebody for supply of whatever it is, in this case, oil, energy, one of the most critical things to any nation. We're going to see that later with Cuba. It is one of the most critical things, it is the most critical thing for a nation, energy. Without energy, your population starves, dies, and gets thrown back into the dark ages without energy. So do you think what's the most important thing then is it's cheap and reliable, energy, right? Cheap, reliable energy. Reliable, these guys say they'll get it done in a year. Canada, well, perhaps we'll fast track it, but we're doing these other things. And if you're Synovus or you're Enbridge and you could invest in the United States, Mexico, UAE, or wherever, Venezuela right now, huge attractant there, Venezuela. Or you look at Canada and say, well, the extremist liberals could get more power in their caucus and even kibosh the stuff that's happening because it's happened in the past. Again, the evidence is there. Teck walked away from $1 billion already sunken in the ground in Frontier in the oil sands in Fort Mac. Absolutely abysmal. And here's one more from CNBC. Guess who's going to buy more energy from The United States of America. Oh, that's right. China. You're going to buy some Alaskan oil. As it sails right by.
Decarbonize?
Yeah. Decarbonize. It's like dehydrated water. The ferret farmers.
Deoxygenated oxygen.
The ferret farmers were only feeding their ferrets dehydrated water. What happens when you dehydrate water? What do you have left?
Oxygen.
Oh man! Oh man! Oh man!
But this I'm gonna say as well. Like I was saying yesterday. Look, Trump, particularly Trump, but the Republican Party of late as well, and the Democrats actually, they've talked about China as a menace, haven't they? As a rising menace, and all these things that China does, blah 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 blah, and yet we're gonna, or from the American perspective, they're saying now we're gonna give them the stuff of life. We're gonna give them something that they struggle to obtain otherwise, fuel, and they're really celebrating this. They're really happy about this. I mean, whatever. If this can help bring about peace between these two powerful countries, then all power to them. But it does seem a little bit contradictory and strange, doesn't it? Like, China's the greatest threat the United States have ever faced. On the other hand, let's sell them things they really need to be powerful.
On the other, I just want you to consider this: if the most important thing for each nation is energy, and you control the supply of that energy to that nation that could be your adversary, you have a pretty good leash on that nation.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you make that argument about certain other things, though, like the sophisticated semiconductors and whatnot, those glorious chips that they want, because they're trying to figure it out themselves. So that would be the perfect stopgap, wouldn't it? So that wouldn't really make sense, especially when the Chinese hold back on a lot of things that they don't want other people to have, like rare earths. They hold them back because they don't want them to be as strong as they are. They don't want them to be stronger than them.
We got some stuff later on in the show that's going to blow your mind. I promise you. We got some receipts and we got some stuff to show you that will literally blow your mind here. But as Mark Carney announces the pipeline, if they do pathways, he also comes out with his electrification strategy. And this is the big one that they've been talking about. They've been kind of like promoting this for a while now. They've been promoting that they're going to come out with this electrification strategy, and he's proposing $1 trillion expansion of the power grid. But there's not much, again, with this government. There's not a lot of detail in who's going to pay for it, how it's going to get paid for, and what it's going to do. But, he says, and then the timeline is like way out there. I mean, you can just make shit up. Sorry, did I say that? You can make stuff up, $1 trillion, and by 2050, double it. I mean, we better double it by then, because according to what you guys are doing with the population, you're going to double that as well with your $100 million or 100 million. What is that? The 100 plan, the population, 100 million. And it was
Century Initiative.
Yeah, and India offered up, another 40 million? It's like...
It's so funny, just the idea that it's like two businessmen in an office, like, I'll give you 40 million. 40 million of my people.
And Carney says, well, we'll give them scholarships too. We don't want to give that to the Canadians, but hey, scholarships for the 40 million. And free housing. We got that too.
And in exchange, we can, sell them oil, I guess. That's our reward.
You can't even make this stuff up. It's a big grand plan. The strategy, 4 pillars. Build infrastructure needed to double Canada's electricity generation. Again, we did the report just a while we had Heather Exner-Perot on. Canada, if you can believe it or not, is a net importer of electricity, and the electrical grid in Canada is in basically shambles. It's been neglected for so, kind of like our military. It's been neglected. British Columbia, which should be energy rich with hydro, is a net importer of electricity. These are the facts. They're there. You can go read the reports. It's absolutely there. And if you look at Canada, we talk about Team Canada, they actually highlight some of the problems here. Canada's grids are better integrated north and south than they are east and west. We have better integrations with, the Washingtons and Detroits and that, or Michigans and that, than we do with Alberta and BC. And do you know what I mean? Like,
same in everything though, not just electricity. It's everything, isn't it?
It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
But this is, as usual with Mark Carney and his predecessor was the same. They don't really provide any details. I would say actually, Trudeau did used to provide a little bit more detail, believe it or not. In my experience, there was more meat to announcements from Justin Trudeau than Mark Carney. But that's the all important question is, how much is this going to cost us all? Because it's obviously going to cost the Canadian people, like ratepayers. It's going to mean more expensive energy from the consumer's perspective, and also probably higher taxes at the same time. But we don't have the details on that. And you'd think, wouldn't you, that's definitely the most important thing. But Carney decided that wasn't something we needed to know.
Well, you could just make grand plans. Like, you can say Canada is going to beat the United States to Jupiter, because obviously America's got plans to go to Mars. So Canada's going to beat the world to Jupiter by the year 3050. And just say it, because who cares, right? Just kick it down the road. But it's weird in this $1 trillion plan that they come out with some of these things. As part of the comprehensive focus, we're going to also give some money to retrofit 1 million households through financing, grants, and complementary measures. And that includes, of course, none other than heat pumps to transition expensive propane, oil, and electric baseboard heating to more affordable heat pumps. Who sells heat pumps? I don't know.
Is it the Trump organization? Do they do
that? They should start selling it. And listen to this.
Follow Brookfield, follow all their major investments, and you'll make a fortune.
Through our climate competitive strategy, climate competitiveness. Why don't we have an energy competitive strategy? Why do we have a climate competitive? It's all in the word. It's all in the language. Through our climate.
Why don't we have a nutrition calorie competitiveness? So we can ensure that our people have enough calories. That would be good, wouldn't it?
We're unlocking hundreds of billions in investments, and this is the order that they have it. This is what they call their climate competitive strategy. And listen to what's missing. And look at the order. Nuclear, hydro, wind, solar, and grid infrastructure, while making electric vehicles more affordable for Canadians. Where's oil in there? Where's LNG? Where's natural gas? Where? I didn't see it.
Well, he did embarrassingly confess, didn't he, to the Americans when he was trying to seduce the Democratic Party. He said, yes, and some natural gas.
And he does say it in here, too, that it'll be a stopgap. Listen, right from the horse's mouth. Let's go. Hey. You gonna play it?
That was good. Is that all he said?
Does your government still plan to meet its 2030 emissions reduction target?
We are putting in place a series of initiatives that will make material emission reductions. We'll update our climate plans and our emission reduction targets in due course. But let's be clear about what we're talking about here. We're looking at an ability to remove about 250 to 300 megatons of emissions through electrification with clean electricity in a very practical way, in a way that will help unleash the $1 trillion or so over the next 25 years of investment that's needed, in partnership with provinces, in partnerships with the private sector, and with a credible plan that's focused on investment and action. And it's that investment that's going to reduce the emissions.
On today's announcement, the strategy says the government plans to allow greater use of offsets to give the sector more flexibility. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on how this will work, and is the ultimate aim here to just allow for more gas power plants?
The ultimate aim here is to make The ultimate aim is to affordably transition to a low-emission, ultimately net zero economy that's more competitive, more independent, more reliable power system. That's the goal.
So you, the Canadian, should suffer while the Liberals continue to chase a goal that the rest of the world has said it's not that important.
Well, he's also on about these emissions reductions. He's so proud of himself, but nobody thought to ask him why. Why should we? Why does it matter? Canada's already ahead of most of the rest of the world when it comes to emission reduction stuff anyway, and it also doesn't matter what Canada does. It literally doesn't matter. We could double it, or we could bring it down to zero. It would make no difference. It doesn't matter. Why does nobody ask the why? That question seems to have just, if it was ever asked, it's just gone now. It's not on the menu. You don't ask that question. Why? Why all this chit chat about megatons of CO2? Like, why? Why should we? Why should we try and do that? Can you please explain that to me?
Well, here's Julie. Julie explaining.
Studies show that the industrial.
No, not that Julie. Whoa. But we can use, but this one here, this one down there.
The future's electric. Electricity is increasingly powering everything we do, from heating our homes and charging our cars to powering our businesses and our industries. And demand for electricity is growing rapidly, both here at home and around the world. That's why our government is launching a new national electricity strategy, a strategy that will double Canada's grid capacity by 2050. Through major investments in clean electricity, we will connect our fragmented grids, create thousands of good-paying jobs, and strengthen Canadian manufacturing so more of the technologies powering our future are made right here in Canada. This work's already underway, from the Iqaluit and Tallston hydro projects in the north, to major wind developments in Nova Scotia, to new nuclear generation projects in Ontario. At the same time, we're making life more affordable for Canadians by helping households move towards heat pumps through home retrofit programs that will lower monthly energy bills and reduce emissions. Canada is the best place in the world to invest in clean energy through investment tax credits, incentives that drive innovation, strengthened industrial carbon pricing, and tougher methane regulations to support a climate competitive economy. This is about building a stronger and cleaner economy and ensuring Canadians have access to reliable, affordable, and clean electricity for generations to come. The future.
I just want to say one thing before you say something on it. Is like, if you were hiring the CEO of a company that strength was in selling oil and gas, would you hire people that refuse to sell oil and gas and want to sell something they don't have instead? Like, is that the best CEO for a country, rich in its richest asset? I mean, not even rich by a little bit, like magnificently rich at it. Like you just said, it could be number 4. If Pierre Poilievre's plan worked. Like, who hires a CEO of a country that ignores its greatest asset?
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It's clownish.
I don't know what
It's
to
like
say to that.
if you were running an ice cream shop and you were just selling great guns and ice cream, and then you hired somebody that was anti-dairy, and he said, "Well, I don't know. We don't sell ice cream anymore. We only sell like tofu cones. That's what we'll be selling from now on." Okay. Would you hire that guy? Stupid.
It's a tough sell. I was just mesmerized there by Julie doing the doing what the YouTuber kids and TikTok people do. You know, where they hold a little fluffy microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, like ostentatiously hold it in front
And
of
the
them.
little
as if to
music
say,
too,
like,
just like
breaking the fourth wall.
just
Yeah.
you're poor, you're broke, you can't afford groceries, but hey, it sucks to be you.
And she's got a voice that belies her years. She's got a voice like those girls that told Mark Carney that he was scarny. She kind of sounds like she sounds very youthful, doesn't she? With her little fluffy microphone.
And then Kuzma obviously so important, but according to the Liberals in the government-funded crippled media here in Canada, we don't need them. Here's Mark Carney on CUSMA negotiations.
As we've said, we're ready to sit down for those negotiations. We know what the major trade issues are for the United States. We have a series of issues around the strategic sectors, including the auto sector, the steel sector, aluminum, forest products, particularly, now derivatives of copper and aluminum and steel. There are big opportunities for both of us if we can come to an agreement. It takes the Americans to focus, and I'm sure once they're finished with their discussions with China, they'll focus.
Always with the smirky smirk, eh? Smirky smirk. Always with the smirky smirk. You guys have kiboshed the CUSMA talks. It's on us, and also the media rhetoric and the liberal rhetoric have put many Canadians into food bank lineups, many struggling to make their monthly obligations in a nation as rich as this. It's just, again, it makes no sense. It makes no dollars and makes no sense. It makes sense for the few privileged, for sure. It makes a lot of sense for them.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Well, here's a little graphic. We'll just leave this sit here for a while. There you go. That's from the Royal Bank. $1 trillion. What was happening in 2015? Anybody? Anybody remember? But hey, more of the same. It's got to be good for the goose, good for the gander. It's amazing the goose is still standing. It's amazing that the goose is still standing. Yeah. It's just.
We've got a new troll.
We got a
who's
troll.
come and moved in under our bridge.
Yeah.
Charles Faubert, or maybe it's Charles Faubert. Who's, because we're talking about how it's pointless to decarbonize and all the rest of it. Nobody cares. But he mentions that our steel and aluminium gets preferred access in the EU due to eliminating the carbon in it. Doesn't quite make grammatical sense. But yeah, have you ever thought, Charles? Have you ever thought how valuable the EU actually is to us? Have you ever looked at the figures, the data? Have you ever compared the EU market to, I don't know, for example, the US market? Have you even compared the European countries to China, a country that we barely trade with? But have you ever looked at that? Because it doesn't look very good for the European Union. Have you looked at the European Union's recent economic performance? By recent, I mean, I don't know, last 15 years? Have you looked at their demographics? Like Germany, for example, a corpse of a country that is, its population is literally shrinking. Demand is going to decline in Germany, which is the beating heart of the European economy. Are you interested in any of those things? Because if you were, I don't think you would say that. Putting your ferret eggs in the European basket has to be the most insane thing any country could do in the year of our Lord 2026. Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody look to the European Union as their economic savior? It's madness. They are marginal, fringe. You shouldn't rejig your entire economy to please the European Union. Surely only a madman would do that.
Maybe one should examine their energy policies as well after they destroyed their nuclear facilities and then they got rid of the fossil fuels and now they're reliant on what? Oh yeah, that's right, Russian energy. Oh yeah, and they fund the war on both ends. Brilliant, brilliant.
Well, the Germans are relying on lignite. Silly, absolutely ridiculous people, the Germans. God bless them. Charles, that's why I said the name calling from you is a joke. Do you read your own messages? Look at what you've been writing, you fool. I mean, come on, mate. If you want to play the game, you just got to grow up a little bit. Expect some hurly burly if you dish it out yourself.
Here's a little clip here. on our state of our economy here, the Canada, one of the richest resource nations in the world. This is the state of Canada.
It's not good, right? 18,000 jobs lost is a bad headline. The details of this are frankly a little worse, right? Because if you look at the broader trend, we're looking at, I think it's 112,000 jobs now lost since January.
The U.S. economy added 115,000 jobs in April, more than expected. For 15 to 24-year-olds, it crept up another 0.5 percentage point to more than 14%, double the national average. For students, the unemployment rate is 16%.
He says all this traffic is leading to fights.
I'm just waiting for one day for nice shit.
It's just like the numbers are abysmal here in Canada. And, like the job losses, Canada has the highest inflation, food inflation in the G7. Unemployment numbers for youth banging on the door at 20%. How do you deny any of that? I think Charles has said we're lies, full of lies. I don't know which one's the lie. Just curious as to what the lies are. But
Mick 3443 says Charles benefits from tampons in the men's bathroom. I saw tampons in an elementary school boys' bathroom the other day. So it's not just men. Elementary school boys need tampons these days.
What did we have? Tristan Hopper was on from the National Post, and he says he likes that because he goes in there and he gets supplies for his wife.
It's the free ones, yeah. Well, it was empty. So obviously the Tristan Hoppers of this community have been taking those tampons.
We got a little bit from David Eby here, and he's not a happy camper. We had Ravi Parmar on was it this week or was it last week? What's that? Wednesday we had Ravi Parmar on, and he's saying that forestry got overlooked. But here's David Eby.
Prime Minister Carney said this morning that his announcement tomorrow with Premier Smith, we will also advance potential pipeline to transport at least 1 million barrels of low-emission Alberta oil a day to new markets. What's your reaction?
Thanks very much. I had the opportunity to speak with the Prime Minister this afternoon about his MOU with Alberta's Premier. I am hopeful to be able to meet with him again next week to follow up. We're reviewing the details the Prime Minister has provided about what's in the MOU in terms of implications for British Columbia, the most significant of which relate to the carbon tax. And we'll be able to speak a little bit more comprehensively to it at that point. But I will say, here today, we're talking about a group of international companies that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars, progressing towards a final investment decision. And from our perspective, there is an opportunity for the federal government to work as closely with us on these projects as they work with the government of Alberta on Premier Smith's proposed pipeline.
David Eby not looking happy.
It's quite a funny gimmick, isn't it, that this guy does, Alex Sultan, where he zooms in. It's like a really good way of telling a story. I have to commend him on that.
I mean, this is this is the last thing I'm going to say about Charles. It's great that you're in here commenting because we do like dialogue. But to say that when's the last pipeline that the Conservatives built? We haven't been in power in 11 years. How can they build a pipeline unless they can't even if they wanted to go out there with a bunch of shovels and start digging themselves because they would need permits and they would, they just can't do it. So to say that is just silliness, right? Because when's the last time the Conservatives built a pipeline? Well, for sure not in the last 11 years, right? How many pipelines has Danielle Smith built? Probably lots, right? How many what has she done for Alberta prosperity? A lot.
Now he's on about Jews. What are you talking about?
You're going to get crazy here because we're not talking about that. So stay on topic or go into the quiet room.
Yeah, I mean...
Topic.
I'm very happy to give time to serious interlocutors. If people are serious and they actually want to have a conversation and they've got some knowledge. But, I mean, I think he's just...
All right. Food prices in Canada. Chicken prices are becoming a problem in Canada. It's a supply-managed sector. It shouldn't be this way. At the same time, more produce is now coming from beyond North America, non-North America, and adding even more pressure on prices this past year due to higher logistics and transportation costs. Look at some of these prices. Cucumbers up 45%, chicken 33, tomatoes 30, beef rib 26. Look, some of these prices are just crazy, crazy, crazy. Why? Diesel in Canada, large nation, second largest landmass. And how do we transport goods? Tractors, trains, transport trucks, and ocean liners all burn diesel. Diesel, diesel, diesel.
Yeah. I mean, look at this stuff, though. It's crazy when you actually see it. This is only since April 2025 as well. Judge me by the prices at the grocery store. That's about when he said that, isn't it?
Yep. Canadian grocery stores. You know that maple washing, buy Canadian? Remember when the buy Canadian? And that's what the federal government was doing that as well. Buy Canadian policy. We shared that story with you this week. I believe it was last week. Where it's like to be considered a Canadian company in this buy Canadian policy, all you had to do is have a GST number and one employee in Canada. Doesn't matter who you were. Just like that, Bob's your uncle. You are now maple washed. And they're saying that they're starting to pull these stickers off because a lot of them, like there's some stuff that was grown in or putting stickers on things like bananas and just like made in Canada. What? Here you go. Let's listen to a little bit of this clip here on maple washing.
Mysterious appears to be happening on store shelves at Sobeys across the country.
So it looks like the maple leaf symbol is gone from the coffee.
Those ubiquitous maple leaf symbols promoting Canadian goods seem to be disappearing.
No maple leaf here.
Steve Palmer has noticed it too.
The maple leaves are completely gone.
He's passionate about the bike.
That's good. I'd say, Steve, you got to stop watching CBC because you bought into the nonsense in the first place, right? The maple washing, right? Because the government's not doing it, even though they stand up there and talk about how buy Canadian. Their policy themselves, if you look into, if you scratch just a hair below the surface, you notice that they recognize it's nonsense. And if you look at it, if you look at the leadership by example, his wife works in the United States, his kids go to school in the United States. Michael Myers, all their big promo people, Mike Myers, in the United States. It's just crazy. Justin Trudeau, where's he hanging out these days? Oh, right, United States with his new girlfriend.
Indeed. They love America, don't they? And I think we've got something on that, on Mark Carney's favourite company and who they've been investing in. Americans.
Here's one from Holyrood and Blacklocks. Canada needed nearly 82,000 homes to shelter new landed immigrants let into the country last year, and that's from the Department of Immigration. The figures are equivalent to more than a third of all new urban housing starts in 2025. Changes in Canada's immigration levels and composition has intensified attention to the relationship between population growth and housing demand. It calculated that 395,000 landed immigrants allowed in Canada required more than 81,000 housing units. The figure is equivalent to about 34% of the 241,000 housing units counted by Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation last year. I mean, that is one of the things that we talked about this in the last few days. The two things that are really hurting this nation and many nations in the UK and European Union is immigration and energy. Bad energy policies, bad immigration policies. And who pays for both of those? The average person pays for it. Immigration, you pay for it and no access to health care, long wait lines, higher rents, food inflation, and higher crime, youth unemployment, that's 15 to 24-year-olds, banging the door 20% in many areas. And energy policies, you pay for that in high energy costs and lack of prosperity, less jobs, and an economy in Canada that is stagnant, is absolutely stagnant when it should be booming. Like the sun is out. There's no denying it. I don't care how you try to frame this. The sun is literally shining for energy right now. It's just like this is the moment for energy. And Canada continues to curtail its own strengths. And that is like an absolute fact. And their reasoning for it, obviously, is climate agenda. And so then that's their argument, is that's the reason they kibosh our natural wealth, is because of energy policies that nobody else in the world seems to be adhering to. The largest economies, China and the United States, will have none of that nonsense. But Canada seems to think it can save the world. And it wouldn't be so bad even if that's what they actually believed in, if they weren't stuffing their pockets with money from climate grift. That's the tough part to swallow, when you see patronage of, like we just showed you a while ago, liberal insiders getting a $200 million grift loan to build a wind farm in the East Coast. And this is over and over. Stephen Guilbeault won't cough up the paperwork for the $250 million allegedly that he siphoned off for his own companies. So, I mean, it's over and over again. $50 billion wasted on EV plants that are mostly all bankrupt and gone. I mean, those are facts. You know, like some people will say that we're making shit up. None of that's made up. Those are all facts. Those are all facts.
It is mad though. I mean, the immigration policy, it's been it's a new kind of immigration. That's what we need to bear in mind. That's the context. It's often controversially referred to as replacement migration, but among economists, and you know, when people feel safe and they're away out of the public eye, they have used that term, replacement migration, because that is fundamentally what it is. We've talked about population pyramids and things like that. It's an attempt to replace the lost kids, the kids that weren't born. It's an attempt to replace that part of the pyramid so that it's fatter at the bottom, so that you have, in the argument of these economists is, therefore your economy will continue to function and you won't sort of collapse into debt with an aging population, like too many retired people, like the ratio not being very healthy between retired people and working people. But I think it's safe to say, isn't it, at this point now, that replacement migration hasn't worked out, to the extent that that term has become incendiary, hasn't it? It's become like a controversial term now, because it quite obviously has failed. It hasn't worked. And it's also, I think we're looking now at mechanization or automation or whatever, like the mechanization of AI. We're looking at robotics in a very serious way now. And it just seems all the more ridiculous, doesn't it, to have pursued that policy. So I think it's about the kind of migration that's been pursued, isn't it? And that's why it's gone from being quite a popular and well-supported policy in this country to being a very detested policy.
And you know how, like, if you're like for CRA, you have to keep meticulous records, right? Like, they want your records. They want them to be meticulous when you're submitting. But hey, we've shown you time and time again that the Canadian federal government, not so good with record keeping. And here's another example. Parks Canada installed hundreds of small cabinets and the equivalent of more than $57,000 each to encourage overnight visits by people who don't like camping. That's weird. And record keeping so poor it was impossible to learn if the agency recovered its costs. How many of those have we seen where they say well, you know, we didn't track any metrics. We don't track that stuff. It was not possible to determine whether the program successfully implemented a cost recovery model. Contracts of under the 15 million problem are set to expire this year. The fund did not even cover the ongoing maintenance costs.
Why don't they do the most basic things?
It's just wild, right? It's absolutely wild.
You couldn't get away with this at a hot dog stand. Do you know what I mean? You
can't get away with it with your own, like,
the federal government.
With CRA, why doesn't CRA put some rules on these guys? Because, like, it's just crazy. A total of 470 cabins were installed at parks nationwide between 2018 and 2024. The average annual revenue for the diversified accommodation units was about $4 million compared to approximately $27 million for campsites. Well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out, right? They made $4 million and they spent $15 million. And that doesn't count the operational costs. which would probably just like atrocious. But somebody probably made scads of money off of it. Why wouldn't they keep good records? That's just odd, no?
I mean, or at least keep bad records. Have some records. Like, try at least. But they're just winging it, aren't they? Just totally like, nah.
Honda Motor reported its first annual loss in 7 years as a public company, driven by $9 billion in restructuring tied to its EV business, and has abandoned its long-term EV sales targets. Next slide there. I mean, Ford abandoned, stopped making the Lightning. GM and the United States walked back all their EV mandates and even suppressed some of their tailpipe emissions, and the stock shot up. And they're building factories in the United States of America. They're building new plants in the United States. And that includes people like Mercedes, Toyota, Honda, Stellantis, Ford, GM, selling cars, building plants, because they got rid of the EV mandate. But here in Canada, this was going to be the biggest investment in Canada. This is going to be one of the Honda's biggest investments, was to build this EV plant when everything, when it was a net zero world. Well, the climate agenda had the world by the, when Mark Carney was king. When Mark Carney was king of the world, he led the Net Zero Alliance, and all the bank and all the financial institutions were in on it. The Vanguards, the BlackRocks, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all of them were in there forcing this ESG, and that included all the Canadian banks. And when they walked away from it, because it didn't work, it didn't work. And we had Chris Wright on a while ago. Chris Wright saying, like, all that investment, and I can't remember, trillions of dollars, it added almost negligible to the world's energy supply. It was all a boondoggle. And most of that money coming from you, the taxpayer. You did it. You paid for it. You paid for it. And most of it amounted to nothing. And those are facts. Those are the facts. And here's a little clip here from CBC on the Honda suspension in the Ontario EV plant.
Alliston plant is the largest single employment site in the country in manufacturing, and it remains whole and intact. The suppliers who rely on that business, $3 or $4 billion worth of parts sold into that assembly per year, and 10,000 or so employees, is intact. But Honda 2 years ago said, we are going to make the biggest investment commitment in our company's history in Canada. And it was the biggest single industrial commitment in the history of Canada as well. But this was before Donald Trump showed up in the U.S. And what happened to the market for the vehicles that were going to be made there is that they canceled the purchase incentives, which was about $7,500 each for EVs. They canceled the EV mandates altogether in the U.S. rather than readjusting them like we did in Canada. And then they canceled all the industrial supports for the supply chain, the battery costs, everything that's in them. At the same time, put tariffs on any automobile that you want to sell into the U.S. And so here's Honda, probably the most disciplined car maker in the world, certainly one of the most, if not the most solid long-term investors in automotive in Canada, saying, I can't burn cash on one hand and invest new cash in a market that doesn't exist on the other hand. For industry observers, we weren't surprised by the report last week or the confirmation today. But, I have to say, and I don't work for Honda, I work for the suppliers that sell into Honda. This is a company that through all of the various crises, 9/11, the financial crisis, COVID, didn't stiff suppliers or Canadian workers or Canadian material suppliers. And, we all take you this bad news and we're all disappointed by it, but we're not disappointed in the company. They've been very good partners.
Why don't we just be honest? This EV mandate's not going to work in Canada. It's not going to work. Make it cheaper, better, faster. Like, your big play is Tesla. I drive a Tesla, love it. And it's good in some areas of Canada. But just stop forcing people to buy something they don't want. And stop making auto manufacturers make something they can't make money at. It just seems like common sense. Yet, we're basically driving the auto sector out of Canada. The RBC says by 2040, there is no auto sector left in Canada. That was an RBC report. Nothing. They're basically choking it off. And here's one.
They had a few scenarios. That was one of the scenarios, but it, still possible. They're saying. But yeah, it is. Once again, I would just say a more general point. Just kind of, you should really limit yourself as a government in how much and how often you interfere in the private market. Like that's like a global mega market. Maybe just don't be so hubristic as to think that you know better than all these companies and that you can fiddle around with the regulations in some way that's going to privilege businesses or the industry in Canada. Because, the evidence seems to suggest that it has the opposite effect, that it makes things worse, that you fail again and again and again. And, we, somebody sent us an email, didn't they? We talked a little bit about Australia's car industry, but somebody sent us quite an interesting email about that, about how the Australian governments kept trying to do the same thing with their car industry. They tried to sort of bail it out and interfere in it, and then eventually it just died entirely. And as most people are probably aware by now, Australia economically hasn't really suffered as a consequence of that. If anything, it's just grown bigger and faster. Again, though, there is an important point that's missed in that argument, which is we've said this a few times. It makes sense if you have any interest in independence and sovereignty and autonomy or whatever as a country. It makes sense that you should have the wherewithal, the knowledge and the machinery and the factories to be able to build, four-wheeled vehicles. Like that's pretty essential, isn't it? If you want to be a real country.
Not that I go back to Charles here because I don't want he's trying to dominate the conversation and try and throw it off here. But Charles, just consider this for a second. Consider this, what you wrote there. Honda's not Canada's or Carney's fault. It was Trump changing the rules to protect oil. Why won't we just say that? Listen, though. You're saying Trump interfered. No. Who interfered in the first place? By mandating EVs. It was the Biden administration forcing people to do it. Let the free market economy do the things. Trump didn't do anything other than remove the restrictions. He removed restrictions and let the free market decide. You're turning it around and, Trump is killing the EV mandate. So you're saying you want complete government control of everything you do. Trump just removed a regulation that was put onto the capital markets that was unfair. People don't want to buy them. And so you're saying they must be forced to buy them. And it's Trump's fault because he removed the forced mechanism to force people to buy them. And that's Trump's fault. It's like, give your head a shake. Give your head a shake. Let people buy what they want to buy. When it's cheaper, better, faster, safer, people will buy them. That's when they'll buy them. People buy iPhones. Why? People don't go in there demanding a flip phone. If you forced everybody to buy a flip phone, do you think that you would get more flip phones? Just be serious. Like, be honest, right? Be honest. The less government interferes with the capital markets, the better. In Canada, it's almost all corporate welfare. The only investment they're attracting lately is because the government is shoveling cash into it. Shoveling cash. It's all like buying jobs that don't work out. They don't even read the contracts. Look at that Stellantis deal. How much would we give them? $12 billion? And then Melanie Jolie didn't read the contract? Now they're fighting to get the money back? It's just nonsense. And then you have
buying jobs. Buying votes as well would be another way to look at it.
And then you have a company like Tesla that actually builds the only EV worth buying. And by far, including the Chinese ones, the only one that makes money, the only company that makes a profit selling electric cars. BYD is actually makes a ton, but there's lots of subsidies in there. But a new report in Automotive News suggests BYD, Chery, Geely, and all of them are scaling back their launch strategies in Canada because they can't even get straight information from Canada. Because now they're going to say, we got to do quotas because Tesla, basically there's 49,000 cars allocated for Canada. Tesla's like, okay. And then they just basically, Tesla's been selling like hotcakes. And there's, whoa, one company can't just take it all. And now they're going to allocate, again, more control. And then what are these companies going to say? Well, we can't come in here. Now they're pushing back their timelines to come into Canada. Get out of the way. There's a song, get out of the way. Get out of the way. It's just steady interference. And what do? You just force people to say, well, I'm not going to deploy my capital there. I'm not going to invest in dealerships. I'm not going to invest in the whole infrastructure if I'm going to be subjected to the political wind of the day. It's just nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Unless you believe that you need to wake up in the morning and see what the Liberal government decided that you need to do today, if that's the world you want. And I can't figure out why there's so many apologists for this absolutely abysmal economy here. 11 years of policy failure in Canada, and we still have apologists that just go around and try to apologize for everything that's been done and blame the Conservatives for it. Conservatives have not been in power for 11 years in Canada.
It almost verges on power worship, I find. It's this kind of attraction to power that people have, and they just want to, they have an instinct to protect power rather than hold it to account and scrutinize it. And
or they're making money off of it, or they're making money. Like that's where they get their money.
Yeah,
the guy, like climate guy, you know, like they're defending their access to the trough. They're defending their access to the trough. What? Tesla is why Chinese EVs were banned? What are you talking about? Teslas were banned as well because they were made in Shanghai. Come on, man. Come on, Joe. Listen to this. This is in Quebec. Listen to this here. This is wild.
Business in our schools. And what happened in Bedford was terrible on so many levels in terms of protecting our children. I'm satisfied. We don't want these teachers around our children.
11 teachers have now permanently lost their teaching licenses following the scandal at Bedford School. The school came under investigation in 2024 after allegations that a group of teachers created what the officials described as a toxic climate of fear and intimidation. Government investigators raised concerns about physical and psychological mistreatment of students, the teaching of religion inside classrooms, and teachers who failed to follow Quebec's curriculum, including science and sex education. Those teachers were suspended with pay until now. The new report says the school changed significantly, saying, quote, "The children smile now, they enjoy school."
On était sous le choc. Il y a un avant et un après, ça c'est sûr. Il y a un avant et un après pour l'école Bedford.
But the report also reveals how deep the problems have become. Investigators identified 38 cases of what they called non-conformities in the way the curriculum was being taught. And out of 30 teachers reviewed, only 10 had lesson planning fully aligned with provincial standards.
Religion has no business in our schools. And what happened in Bedford was terrible on so many levels in terms of protecting our children. I'm satisfied. We don't want these teachers around our children.
The report points out that the situation at Bedford exposed broader weaknesses that could exist in other schools too, and puts a strong focus on Quebec values, including security.
You know, Quebec at least protects its values. You know, you can almost do anything out here, right? Like, I mean, how many stories do we do of teachers with what you call inappropriate conduct towards grade 8ers, grade 9ers, like almost like once a week, no? Inviting them over to their house, drinking with them, like texting them in the middle of the night, and what do they get? 2 days suspension, this kind of stuff. It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
This is quite mad though, and this is like as you sort of hinted at there, this is a sensitive spot for a lot of people in Quebec because they're so hot for secularism, aren't they? Just like the mother country in France, like laïcité, I think they call it, where they want religion out of society, basically. But I don't know. I mean, it's again, it's another sad chapter in failed multiculturalism, isn't it? But it is interesting how Quebec, they are like the canary in the coal mine because that's basically the only culture within Canada, like recognized major culture within Canada that even complains about this stuff. So it's like usually we'll only hear about it because Quebec is upset about it in some way, or somebody in Quebec, which, yeah, as you say, that really makes you wonder what's going on in the rest of Canada.
So just, and this is the last, and I promise this is the last one. Just because somebody writes something in the comments doesn't make it true. Like, it's a half truth. Like, Teslas built in North America were not banned. No, they weren't banned. There was a tariff on them. I follow Tesla quite closely. There was 100% tariffs on the ones built in Shanghai, but there was tariffs on the ones built in Fremont and in Texas. There was a tariff on them, and it made them basically unsellable. I mean, I frequent the Tesla dealer quite a bit, so I understand the Tesla situation quite well. So when they removed the Chinese tariff, Teslas dropped almost that day down to, I mean, the deal on a Tesla right now is crazy on a Model 3. $39,900. And it's crazy. It's such a good deal right now. But if you go look at the prices on, like some of the other stuff, you're going to see the issues. But again, just for people, just because somebody writes it and it sounds like it's an authority, doesn't make them right. So.
Idaho man with a very good, strong contribution.
I missed that.
You just said, men can get pregnant, fight me.
There you go. Another tech firm says it will leave Canada if Ottawa passes bill to spy on its own citizens. Canadian tech company Windscribe joins Signal in warning that it'll move its HQ and take its taxes elsewhere if the Liberal government passes Bill C-22. I mean, you're going to get a lot of pushback. Windscribe says, we pay an ungodly amount of taxes to this corrupt government. Wow, they went all out. In return, they want to destroy the entire presence of our service to basically spy on its own citizens. Not happening. The CEO of the Canadian tech darling Shopify, and that's Toby Lutke, he's outspoken as well, said C-22 is looking like a huge mistake and worries me a great deal. They're basically forcing all the tech companies out. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. There's so much nonsense in there. It may well end up dealing a death blow to Canadian tech viability. They're so enamored with control. We had Brian Isted on this week here. You got to go watch that interview. He was in military intelligence here in Canada, and he said during the Freedom Convoy, they were running a scraper in the air there, scraping cell phone details from people. Unbelievable. You got to go watch that interview. Just go watch it. And it's all about control. Control.
Yeah, but I was just going to say it's not like Canada's in a unique position to like hold on to these companies. We already lose the vast majority of our sort of tech brains. They just go move to California or Texas now, don't they? They just move to America.
I need power.
And that pull is so strong that the scraps that we managed to hold on to, like Shopify, are sort of glorified, aren't they? They're put on a pedestal. It's like, oh, thank God we've still got Shopify. But if you do this kind of thing, then you add a push factor as well as the pull, don't you? It's almost like they want to get rid of these companies, which is so strange because obviously they're just going to go to America where they'll make loads more money anyway. Like there's already a massive attraction there. It almost seems like they're staying in Canada for like the sake of patriotism or something, which is great. But you don't want to test them, do you? And see if you can prod them with a stick and eventually they will bugger off. It just seems so counterproductive. And you've got people like this Toby Lutke guy who is quite articulate and interesting and obviously very successful. He's coming at it from a perspective of like loving Canada, isn't he? Like a patriotic perspective. But nobody listens to him. It's kind of sad actually, because he's crying his heart out about it. And also related to this, Apple said they've come out in opposition to this as well, and saying that they think that this would create like a flaw in their security systems, and they won't tolerate that. So they might do what they did in England, in the UK, where they just suspended the advanced security, didn't they? Because they said, we're not going to modify it so that you can hack into it, because then other people are just going to hack into it. You're not going to be the only people that can hack into it, obviously. Lots of other naughty people will do so. So instead, we're just going to suspend that security feature in the UK So people in the UK are just going to be more vulnerable. Like that. So Apple will do something like that here. So, I mean, it doesn't look wise, does it? At least from where I'm standing.
We got more from the military. Again, go watch that interview with Brian Isted. It's really good. But the military punished soldiers who raised concerns about monitoring Canadians during COVID-19. They reprimanded these soldiers after they raised those concerns in order to monitor the internet activity of Canadians. We talked about this story a few times now. According to a report from CBC, administrative action was taken against a team told to scour social media accounts because it had been deliberately disregarding an order to create anonymous accounts for the task. The team was established in March 2020 with the aim of monitoring political discourse about COVID-19. This is what they do to its citizenship here in Canada. They use the military to run these like wackadoodle operations. The Ottawa Citizen previously reported that some senior figures in the military saw the pandemic as an opportunity to try out new propaganda techniques in Canada. That last line there should scare you.
And then when you read about the actual
on its own population, they were trying out propaganda techniques on its own population. Awesome. Yeah. Who doesn't want that?
But it sounds like Dr. Evil, doesn't it? Or like Goldfinger, Dr. No, or something. It sounds like some sort of sinister, scary enterprise. But then when you read the details, which the CBC actually has been quite good with, they've got a lot of the details. It is so amateurish. There's such a bunch of absolute clowns. Like, they're so clownish. Like, telling them to do it on their own computers, using their own social media accounts. And, like, they had some of them, because the staff were way more intelligent than the officers, and they were like, well, we'll have to use a VPN and stuff, like just the most basic stuff. So yeah, I mean, it is sinister in theory, but in practice it's so shambolic and pathetic. Like, what a clown show.
We asked Brian, because we did that story just a while back where the government, I think it was 1.3 million, was it 1.3 million to a project to give out cameras. They had $2,800 budget for cameras to give out cameras to homeless LGBTQ veterans. And most of that money was in administration and wages to give out these cameras. And the project failed. Only wanted to get the homeless LGBTQ veterans to take pictures of themselves. And then they were going to put it in an exhibit so that they could show that to all their elite friends and in a gallery. And then the program failed because they couldn't find anybody that would want the cameras. And he the look of shock on his face when he said they did what?
And obviously he's very plugged in. It tells you a lot about the media, doesn't it?
They did what? They did what?
That he hadn't seen that. And that's because it's minimized. It's pushed away to the periphery, isn't it? These ridiculous stories where you were talking earlier about the government takes 50% of your money. Yeah, they do. They take 50% of your income, and then they do stuff like that with it. Like unforgivable waste. Where they go around, presumably they're walking around the streets asking homeless people, like, are you homeless? Yeah. Are you a veteran? Yeah. Are you into dudes? It's just like, no, it's like, next homeless person.
We got Brian Mulroney here. No. Not Brian.
The other, Ben.
Ben Mulroney. I'm Brian Mulroney. He's starting to look like his dad. He's really starting to look like his dad. That jaw, that big jaw. You know what I mean? I looked at him just like he's got that Mulroney jaw there. Ben, listen to this clip from Ben.
Is this next story fraud? No, of course not. Is it something really bad? I tend to think so. Ottawa spent $19 billion on contractors in 2024-2025, with projections showing, quote, professional and special services could hit $26.6 billion next year. Now, the government has pledged to reduce that number by 20%. However, here's the most offensive thing. Our public service that is supposed to have within its ranks domain experts on a raft of issues related to running government has expanded since 2015 by 101,000 people. That is a 39% growth over that period. The government decided to balloon its ranks in the public service by 100,000, by 39%. Ask yourself, have your public services improve by 39%? I would venture not even a little bit. But never mind that. You are telling me that on top of going out there and hiring 101,000 new people to work for the government, you still have a lack of knowledge within that government to the tune of $26.6 billion a year? That is rotten to its core. This, to me, is disrespect to the taxpayer of the highest order. Like, pick one enormous expense. Pick 100,000 new workers or 26.2 billion in outside.
That's good from Ben there. McKinsey & Co. is not going to like you, Ben, because they like a lot of that cash money. And New York agency, they get a lot of that cash money.
I think it's also as well you get to sort of take the decision making process out of the sausage maker, don't you? So you don't have to deal with all the bollocks and all the rules and everything, all the obstacles. But a bit like how Carney's created all these, apparently, on the face of it, superfluous organizations within government, like sort of connected to government to carry things through. I think it's because that way you get to sort of leave the sclerotic system behind. So rather than actually try and fix the system, which might upset a lot of people, you just kind of like, you just add something to it. You just have your own separate little squad. So it doesn't, either way, it's a waste of money, isn't it?
We do want to thank Vincent and Diana for the contributions to independent media. And I do think that what we should do for people like that are liberal apologists and that don't want to talk common sense, there should be a common sense tax or tariff. So if you want to say like stuff that makes no sense and you want to apologize for bad policy over the past 11 years, then you should pay like a carbon tax. It's a common sense tax. You should pay a tax to the rest of us that have to put up with nonsense. For every time you want to say something that's nonsensical. What's that?
Robert earlier as well. He was chucking some loonies at us, and Vince of New Scotland.
Thank you. So, Charles, if you want to say more, you should at least contribute if you want to dominate the conversation. That would be appreciated.
Pay the common sense price.
Pay the common sense, because you know what? It's just like a carbon tax. It's just you're spewing. You're going against common sense. Like how much can you take before you say, okay, I've had enough too? How much can you look over at your neighbors and say, wow, they haven't had meat over there forever. Why are their kids screaming all the time? They got no money, no food. No money, no food. No money, no food.
We got some breaking news there. If you want to click on that CBC link, Mr. Fox, this one here. So apparently, they've done a deal, as we all knew was going to happen. And it means that building could start on the pipeline, could start as early as September 2027. So I guess that's when the Emiratis will have finished their new pipeline.
Yeah, they'll have finished it, and we're going to start one. As early as that, we both know if that's the case, like the actual start date will be much beyond that, right?
Yeah. So the agreement would see Alberta submit a proposal for an oil pipeline to the Major Projects Office by the 1st of July, and then the federal government designated a project of national interest by the 1st of October. So it's going as slow as ever, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, God, at least in their own particular weird way, at least something is kind of looking maybe like it might happen. But it says here, an official speaking on background at a technical briefing on Friday said the Alberta government expects the pipeline could start carrying oil no later than 2033 or 2034. 2034, guys. 2034. Now that is moving at speeds. You didn't even know that was possible, did you? You didn't know that we could move at speeds that... I mean, come on. How fast is that? 2034?
That's like almost 10 years. A decade. It's an embarrassment. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? Those data centers, I'm going to skip a couple stories here just because, these data centers, and there's going to be one in Vancouver, massive one in Vancouver there. Look at that. It looks pretty, eh?
That does look quite handsome.
They won't say how much money the government coughed into it. They don't have that. This is the Post media story. As they said, they're working on. We couldn't get any clear answers. Who's paying for what? Why are we paying anything? I don't know. Elon Musk isn't asking people for money. Meta, you know what I mean? They're paying for themselves. And Trump said, "Get your own power." Trump said, "You want to build a data center? Get your own power." He says, "You're not going to take it from the taxpayer." Here in Canada, just like, oh, you want to build a data center? How much cash do you need? And where are they going to get the power? BC is already a net importer of power. So where's the power coming from? Because we do know that these things eat power. And they said in here some nonsense about, oh, it's going to take the heat off of there and it's going to generate power and it's going to give it back to the system. Where does the power come from to create the heat? Do you know what I mean? Like, who's doing the logic here? And they won't answer how much government money is going into it. Again, in contrast, in the United States, Trump has said to the AI data centers, go ahead, build your data center. We're not giving you any money, but also get your own power, because you're not going to increase the power for the residents around the system. Get your own power.
Well, and all important is Trump says, we're not going to get in your way. And actually, we'll help you. We'll help you clear the hurdles so that you can build your own power generation. And that makes a very large difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Charles here for a second. Canada needs east-west oil and gas pipelines. Needs east-west, north-south. Needs them everywhere. Needs pipelines everywhere. Everywhere.
And refineries.
And refineries. Everywhere. Everywhere. Unleash the beast. Get rid of the
rare earth refineries. Can you imagine that?
Get rid of the climate grift. Get rid of all that nonsense. Let's talk about the U.S. So we got China, the big trip, Trump on his way home. And guess what? When he's on his way home, he talks to the reporters on the plane. Carney? No. Rarely talks to the reporters at all. Here it is, Trump on the Air Force One.
It was an amazing period of time. President Xi's an incredible guy. Got along, made a lot of great trade deals, including over 200 planes for Boeing with a promise of 750 planes, which will be by far the largest order ever if they do a good job with the 200, which I'm sure they will. And that's General Electric also, the engines. So they're buying General Electric. So it's approximately 450 engines, 200 planes, and a promise of up to 750 if they do a good job. We had an amazing time. It was a very historic. Oh, look who we have! Oh, look.
And from
who do we have? I'm fascinated.
Look in the background there. You see all the people that are on the other side of the wall there. That's the good side of the wall, I guess. The reporters on this side of the wall, and that's Jameson Greer there, right in behind there. I think I saw Laura Trump, and then I think Eric there, and the tall guy in the background.
Is that Eric? Well, one of his kids, anyway. I always mix up their names.
That's Eric, I think, not Don Jr. Right. And then also Bloomberg put out this story and saying that President Xi hailed the new relationship between the largest economies, projecting optimism despite unresolved tensions. And but there were some tussles, though. There was some tussles in China there, as the Secret Service tried to get in their protection detail, and their Chinese were trying to disarm them, and they're like, not having that. Let's play this clip here.
Been some heated and physical clashes between the Secret Service and the Chinese police on basically at the back doors of these events, including one very physical standoff where a Secret Service officer was being prevented from taking his weapon in as part of the protective detail. But things have all been ironed out, and as far as we know, the schedule has not been changed because of that. Martha.
Yeah, well, it's a tense meeting. I think that is...
Good. That's good. I did watch the clip. They did release that clip of that tense meeting, and they were pushing each other back and forth as the Secret Service was trying to get to Trump, and the Chinese were trying to disarm them, and they weren't having that. And they got through.
Fascinating.
They got through. And then Rubio on Taiwan, and we won't play the clip here just in the interest of time, but he said that the stance hasn't changed. U.S. policy on the issue of Taiwan is unchanged as of today. And he said it was brought up, and they said we always make our position clear. Although Trump didn't come out and say that. When he was asked directly about it, and he basically said, I don't want to answer that. But Rubio, and that's kind of what they do sometimes. I mean, Carney does that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, any leadership, any sort of team, that tends to happen, doesn't it? Where they do good cop, bad cop, and confuse your opponents or whatever. But that's America's policy, or has been for a long time, until Joe Biden just came out and said, yes, we would defend Taiwan. Up until then, the whole sort of point was for it to be ambiguous. And that the idea was that would spook China enough so that they wouldn't try and attack and take it, but at the same time would make it possible to have a decent relationship with China. But I don't know, I mean, Xi Jinping, anybody that's actually followed his speeches or anything like that, or anyone that's a follower of Xi Jinping thought with a capital T will know that Taiwan is like all important to him. It's pretty much I would say it's his number one policy, maybe number two, one or two. It's like he is absolutely obsessed with Taiwan and devoted to the idea that it's going to become part of his country. So it's a very important issue. I mean, they have to take it seriously. And he's created an environment where we're all just kind of waiting to see what he's going to do. Is he actually going to try and take it? And lots of people are very confident that he still is intending to do that, maybe even next year.
Cuba hasn't had an oil delivery in 6 weeks. Blackout's back. Russia stopped showing up. But the CIA director just landed in Havana, and the United States is offering $100 million in aid. And here's Rubio on Cuba. Here, listen. Rubio of Cuban heritage. This is the big opportunity for Cuba with Marco Rubio. Huge.
There's $100 million. By the way, we've given them humanitarian aid. After the hurricane, we provided them $6 million of humanitarian aid, $3 million of which was distributed, $3 million of which is still being held up, but is available for them. Now we're saying here's $100 million of humanitarian aid. So I don't know if they watch your broadcast in Cuba, but if they are, the Cuban people should know there's $100 million of food and medicine available for them right now, and the only reason it's not reaching the Cuban people is because of the regime. No strings attached. The only string attached is it has to be distributed by non-governmental organizations. Yeah. This can't be humanitarian aid that the government steals for it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But I mean, it does certainly look like that's that they definitely want Cuba during this administration. Like they want it in the next couple of years.
It's a huge opportunity for Cuba as well, with Marco Rubio possibly being the next president of the United States too. I mean, he's definitely, his star is on fire for sure. Like, I mean, he's also the guy. Like, I mean, if I don't know if you ever watch those commercials. Let's get Mikey to do it. And basically, whatever's needing to get done, including press secretary that one day, just like, Rubio can do it. Rubio can do it. Well, we need this. Get Rubio to do it, right? So he's very competent and well-spoken. And if people think Trump was like hardline, I think Rubio will be very much pro-American. Very much pro-American.
It does make you wonder, though, doesn't it, about J.D. Vance? Because Marco Rubio has... Well, he's got two jobs, hasn't he? Two official jobs. National Security Advisor, which is a massive job. And also Secretary of State, which is another gigantic job.
It's like almost like the second in command, like vice president's job. But Secretary of State is like arguably one of the most important jobs in the United States. That's foreign diplomacy. And a lot of
people that went on to be president in the past, including the founding fathers, were secretaries of state. Obviously, Thomas Jefferson, as I've mentioned, but it was often like your first step into the White House or into the Oval Office. So that's a massive job. But alongside all these jobs, he gets given these random little Boy Scout tasks, whereas J.D. Vance is just the vice president, which is famously a job with no real purpose other than to be alive if the president dies or resigns or whatever. So, that's why vice presidents usually get given loads of special tasks. Like Kamala Harris was obviously given the border, which she promptly did nothing about and completely screwed up. But it's quite interesting anyway that Rubio's getting all these jobs. He's hoovering up all the responsibility while Vance he seems to be out of favor, J.D. Vance, basically. I guess that's what I'm saying. He's not being given any responsibilities. Though he did get sent to Pakistan, didn't he, to help with the negotiations with Iran. But I mean, it's pretty sort of low-key stuff by and large for Vancey boy. He must be feeling disappointed.
Right now, if they play their cards right, they could get 8 years out of Vance and Rubio. I guess the question is it Rubio first and then Vance? Does Vance carry on as VP for another? Because I mean, you can VP forever, right? And
I don't know if anyone's ever done that, actually, come to think of it, but theoretically, I guess.
But Secretary of State is one of the more complicated positions because obviously America distributes a lot of its power out into the world, right? I mean, a lot of foreign influence, right? So it's a huge, it's not like Anita Anand where she just writes strongly worded letters to the UN and stuff like that, right? So that has really.
It's like what the old Foreign Office and Colonial Office, what they used to be during the heyday of the British Empire. That was like an absolutely gigantic job, and it mattered profoundly what you did, what you said. It was huge. And now America is the successor to the British Empire, pretty much. And he's like the Foreign Office, Foreign and Colonial Minister.
And then here's your buddy, Sir Keir Starmer. He's made his first public appearance. Let's listen in as everybody wants his job. And Keir Starmer hanging on with his little grubby little nails.
Can I introduce you to Jason? He's one of our most experienced CCTV operators.
Good morning, sir. Nice to see you. How are you? Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice to see you. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
So what you're saying is, obviously, this is a bank of our CCTV screens. This is in
this is your regular.
This is our regular CCTV operation. What we've got on the screens in front of you is a bank of different scenarios. So
small p politics and protest groups have got more polarised and angry, and so both groups at the weekend have a track record of having an intimidatory effect on communities.
And have you got reasonable intelligence on numbers and things like that?
Numbers is really hard, isn't it?
So the numbers is the difficult bit. Yeah. We never would have expected to see the numbers we saw last September, so we have to work in essence that we're going to see that size and scale again.
Away from. And so the effect on those communities.
That's good. That's good enough. I think Keir should walk with his back pressed up against the wall there. Isn't that Ed Miliband there next to him? Just like walk with your back pressed against the wall, because you don't know who the next Brutus will be.
So cringe as well. I mean, I think that is almost like an attempt to do a Trump, isn't it? Where you're kind of like conducting business live on air.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's a very large number, isn't it? Yes. He doesn't fill you with confidence.
And he's like, Ed, stand in front.
Look so tacky.
Ed, stand in front. Do not stand behind me. Oh, and if you want cringe, this is the cringe. This is absolutely. You tell me what's going on here. Listen up.
Say, look, this is a moment where there are no bad ideas. A no bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it. And in that no bad ideas brainstorm, we talk about what we need to do and think about doing around the Electoral College. We talk about the idea of Supreme Court reform, which includes expanding the Supreme Court. We invite a conversation about multi-members districts. We talk about, that if we win the Senate, which we should and we will, then the Senate Judiciary Committee should have rules that they put in place so when these people come before as nominees to the Supreme Court and lie, that they are held to account and consequence. Not just that somebody goes on cable news and says they lied, but that there are rules in place to actually penalize people for lying to a Senate Judiciary Committee. That we agree that it is right to have ethics rules for Supreme Court justices. And let's put those in place. Let's talk about statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. These are the things I think that we've got to do. We've got to neutralize these red states from cheating, including blue states expanding their maps. And all of this, I think, is look, we got to fight fire with fire. These folks are playing to win. We got to play to win, too.
I have no idea what she's talking about.
She's just seems like a belligerent drunk, like trying to shout at you about politics. It's like,
oh, I mean,
I'm just here to have a beer. Please, man.
Definitely would be. I mean, the world would definitely have control. The World Economic Forum would have control of the world right now, for sure. If her and Tim would have won, it would have been, they would have had this climate extremism would be going on. Everything would be just crazy. And
she's look at that, her temperament. She's mad. She, you know, not just the things that she's saying, but the way she's saying them. She's like a loony.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want somebody like that in charge of, like, to be the commander in chief. For
you don't know
God's sake.
that, but again, reminiscent of Mark Carney when he speaks, like you have no idea what she was getting at there, because it seems like just ranting incoherently, like making no sense. And a lot of the stuff is misinformation, disinformation. A lot of the cheating going on was right there, late at and the lying. Oh my God, the border is secure, is it? Media in Canada, government-paid publishers are petitioning MPs to maintain that annual payroll rebate of up to $29,750 per employee, because that's supposed to roll back here. The rebate's initially promised to be temporary and is set to roll back at $13,750 for next year. And they're saying, you know, the real news is the antidote to disinformation, misinformation. That's from the lobby group, News Media Canada. So I mean,
yeah,
like,
I mean, it's only ever good, solid, gold standard information, isn't it?
Just like
most publishers never miss or diss, just good old-fashioned information when we do it.
I was going to play this clip here, but and it's basically the ad issue panel here talking about Carney's authoritarian overreach here. They're talking about the whales, but it's kind of like a pointless discussion here as Rosemary does her usual defending of the Liberals. As Athleela there goes after Mark Carney for, you know, damage to the whales. But we got a couple other things we want to get done here, because I think Iain Black's going to call in here in a couple of minutes here. So we're going to try and get through some of this stuff. Here's your friends at the BBC. Listen to this as I tried to ask a question. This is hilarious.
Investigation, but that is under investigation.
Are you able to confirm yet that it was a U.S. missile?
We'll just play this.
BBC for the radio.
Fake BBC, you mean the ones that put AI in my mouth? The ones that gave me, had me saying a statement that they now admit was not true? That the ones that put terrible words in my mouth and then had to admit that it was fake? The ones that are being sued now for $5 billion and don't know what to do? You with BBC? They're another fake outfit. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So we have Iain Black going to jump in here. We're going to go to that quick commercial break while we set him up on the screen there. And we're going to talk to him, and then we'll come back with Iain Black. He's running Conservative leadership here. And we got a few more stories we'll do after Iain Black here. But we're just going to do that quick commercial break if we can. And we're going to try something fancy, too, where we put him full screen after. Okay. Can we do that? Hi, Ian. How are you
Good
doing?
day.
That's Iain Burns. Same spelling of your name there too, Iain Burns.
I was going to say, you've clearly got your hiring standards where they should be. You're hiring Ians who spell their name correctly.
Thanks for joining us
Beautiful.
on the really big show here. Thanks for coming on. As
Hey,
you
thanks
get
for being
into the final moments of the Conservative leadership race, right? The people are going to pick a Conservative leader here on May 30th.
We're down to the short strokes. It's been an exciting couple of weeks. Actually, I think it's been about 3,500 kilometers since I last spoke to you, Jim. We're doing the world tour of British Columbia, and it's just such a privilege to be engaging members all over the place. But yeah, we're down to the last couple of weeks now, and I think there's some clarity now about what the different candidates stand for, where they might take British Columbia, and frankly their probabilities of actually forming government and their ability to win a general election.
All that said, there's been quite a few debates now. What makes you stand out the most, you think, compared to the other candidates? Like, what is your kind of like, this is why people should vote for Iain Black on May 30th?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think it's the resume that I bring to the conversation and the fact that I've got a very specific plan that's been well laid out over the last 7 weeks, which we've got, I think, 30 pages of policy on our website that we in turn crystallized to a 5-point Premier's plan that we unveiled 3 weeks ago today, the involving mainly the highlight of it, the 20% personal income tax cut, as well as some very clear policies around major project certainty, healthcare, education, and public safety. But the resume is also one of the things that stands out. When the noise of these campaigns settle down and all the chatter online settles down a little bit, it's clear that I'm the only candidate that has the three critical attributes, all of them, meaning one, I've actually led something repeatedly. I've got it on my resume that I know how to get men and women focused on some common objectives, holding each other accountable, measuring outcomes, and actually achieving something as a team far greater than you can as an individual. Second is a command of public policy, especially economic public policy, because if we don't get the books sorted out, we're not getting anything else done. And number three, that critical cabinet and treasury board experience. So I understand not only where the Premier's office is, but what it does. And it's very different than the experience of the other candidates. So in combination and with modesty, I'm the only one with those three attributes.
And I think most of the candidates have a similar stance on property rights here in British Columbia with DRIPA and UNDRIPA. I believe that's fairly common, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, that's long since. That's kind of almost yesterday's news, which is a crazy thing to say because it's still like the number one issue that we all need to deal with. But there's no gold stars being handed out at this point for anybody who's saying that they want to repeal DRIPA and repeal Section 8.1 of the Interpretations Act. And in my case, I've said we need to open a conversations with the other premiers in Canada around changing the Constitution and inserting a simple phrase around private property rights to make sure that we're never, ever having these conversations again.
Iain and I do lots on this show, on the Really Big Show, about energy, and energy is one of the most important things into prosperity and to a healthy economy. And what's would be your policy on energy here for British Columbia?
Well, energy specifically pertaining to oil and gas, actually, and electricity. Now that I think of it, there's three key things. One is I was the president of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, and one of the best days we did something called the Federation Flight. And I charted an Air Canada flight between Vancouver and Edmonton, and we put 200 people on that plane, and business leaders and community leaders, labor leaders, Indigenous leaders. And we flew to Edmonton to meet with an NDP premier to convince her that 65% of our population hasn't lost its mind. And we're actually big fans of getting our natural resources to Tidewater via pipelines, so that we can stop selling them to the Americans at a 30% discount to world prices. So I'm clearly on the pro-pipeline side of the equation. But there's a more complex thing that I'd be interested in your thoughts, Jim, is on, I think we have an opportunity with some of our struggling forestry communities to do something bolder and to rethink critical elements of our economy. If you look at little communities, Valemont, Mackenzie, some of these communities where forestry employment is half of what it was a few years ago, what they've got in the ground underneath them is minerals. What do minerals need for mining? To mine them, rather? Electricity. So why don't we take some of our natural gas that we're currently selling to the Americans at a discount so they can sell it back to us as premium priced electricity? why don't we take some of that natural gas, run it to those little communities, get cogeneration electricity produced using that natural gas so that we can actually run mining operations and rethink a bolder look at what this province could look like if we properly take advantage of our natural resources and the energy sector.
I mean, that is BC's big wealth. It's our resources, whether that's LNG, oil in the northeastern portion of it, but also mining is huge. And I was a mine site controller at one time, and I worked in forestry for a long time as well, so I know those industries well. And BC and Alberta used to be a 1-2 punch for Canada. They used to be the big 1-2 punch, right? And lately, British Columbia struggling with that 1-2 punch. And mine site development here to get a mine in operation in Canada now, almost 20 years in some cases. Is there a plan to kind of like fast track some of this stuff? In 2 years, I talked to some guys that just to get exploration permits, never mind, getting the mine site going.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. We become the Department of No. And, or putting it another way, we become the business prevention team. Government should not be the business prevention team. We should be the enablers. We should be rolling out red carpets to the investors who want to grow our natural resources sector, because that's the key to family supporting jobs that actually drive the economy. So you have me at hello in the concept. So I think the second part of our 5-point plan, I mentioned our 5-point plan, the first one being the 20% personal income tax cut. The second part of it, and they're really closely linked, is the commitment around decisions from government with respect to major projects. And one of the key elements of that is a 120-day commitment. So once all the work is done, I'm not suggesting shortcuts. Once all the work is done to make sure that a mining application or any other type of application for major projects has met the criteria necessary, the day that it arrives at the government's doorstep, no more of this 2 to 3 year wait to get a response. It's 120 days under my government. And the way we're going to work it is that the government will have 120 days to say no. And if they don't, the answer is yes, keep moving. So quite effectively a reverse onus on the government to get things moving. We need to combine with that personal income tax cut. We need to send a jolt to our economy, both internally in terms of getting money back in people's pockets and getting projects going that actually drive employment, but also sending a message to the rest of the world that is desperately needed, that British Columbia wants to do business again, that foreign direct investment, which is critical to driving our economy because we're such a tiny little country, that it's welcome. And that welcome mat has been pulled away, and we need to send that message that we're open for business. And that's my intention.
Iain? The other Iain, sorry.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, that's probably better, isn't it? Yeah, I want to talk to you about DRIPA, land back, land acknowledgements, things like that. You've been very forthright and clear about that. You want rid of all that. You're just going to say no. My question is, do you think really, if you think about the nuts and bolts, the day-to-day, do you think you can really win that fight? Because that will be a huge fight, I suspect. You'll be pushed on that. If you were Premier, you would be pushed on that pretty much every single day, wouldn't you?
Which part specifically, Iain? The land acknowledgement?
Even land acknowledgements, but it's more, because you mentioned land back, it's more the kind of philosophical rejection of, I think, the majority of the left, certainly, that this idea that the land was stolen. It's based on colonialism. It's this original sin and reconciliation. It's like the whole package, isn't it? It seems like you're saying no to that. I feel like that would be an enormous battle for you.
Well, I was raised a rather diplomatic lad, but you have to be clear in certain things where you stand. And I think, but I do reject it. So when you say it's rejecting the philosophy of the left, I do reject it. My mom and dad immigrated from the UK, and they're newlyweds from Glasgow, right? And I was brought up to think that this was the greatest country in the world, and I should be thanking my lucky stars every day that my mom and dad immigrated here instead of someone else. I still believe that. I've raised my children that way. And the notion that we're using divisive language like settlers and colonizers and stolen land and unceded, that has never been okay with me. I mean, land acknowledgements have been around for 20 odd years. I mean, it was the tradition at the Board of Trade when I was there. I was a minister of the government 20 years ago when they were already being done. And I had a pal of mine who was a lawyer mentioned to me just in casual conversation that I shouldn't use the word unceded. because as a minister of the government and a member of the executive council of the province of BC, that has legal weight. And back then, land acknowledgements were just kind of good manners. So I didn't really think about it, but I took out the word. And so for all these years, I've never used that word. And as time went on and land acknowledgements and that language became more weaponized, I was really glad that I had, because suddenly now it meant a lot more than when I got it over a kind of cup of coffee conversation in 2008. So I do have I have no problem rejecting the land back strategy, but there's a window there for absolutely a window for what I call legitimate reconciliation, economic reconciliation, mainly driven out of the federal government. We get into problems in this province because we try to get in the lane of the federal government with virtue signaling and other types of performative politics. And DRIP is your prime example. There is no other subnational government on the planet that has tried to adopt the United Nations resolutions on indigenous people, except British Columbia. And the great irony is that that resolution at the United Nations was written for countries that don't have indigenous rights built into their constitution, which we do. Like, it's not even one of these things that was built for Canada. So that kind of nonsense driven out of the Premier's office and the NDP here is what's got us into this mess. And the irony, Iain, is the greatest loser of this nonsense will be the First Nations people themselves. I think David Eby has put back legitimate reconciliation 15 years with this nonsense. And you're right, it's going to be messy to undo it, but we have no choice. Politically and economically, we're in a very, very bad situation thanks to these guys. And we need to reset the clock and do our best to engage those forward-looking First Nations who want to build this province together with us and build a life for their kids the same way that the other 95% of the 6 million people who live here do as well.
And what would you say to the many people, including our Prime Minister, who's waxed lyrical on this, the many people who say this is not just a moral thing, this is good business sense. And if you don't do this stuff, you don't do the ESG, DEI, and everything to do with First Nations in Canada, if you don't do that, you will lose out. You will lose contracts, you'll lose investment, your business will fail.
I don't believe that for a minute. I mean, I reject it. I mean, I can wax this. I've never met a microphone I don't like. I can wax as eloquently as our Prime Minister, I suppose, but I reject that. I'm a free market capitalist. I've been president and CEO of 6 different companies, 3 of them publicly traded. I've merged a Toronto Stock Exchange-based company with a NASDAQ-based company, and I can tell you when you're dealing with the capital markets, they're interested in great ideas, great companies, great leadership, where the people are hired based on merit and their vision and their capacity to execute and build exciting stories. If we hold our politicians to that same standard, which is why I'm running in this race, boy, could we make a difference in our province, in our country. And so I think meritocracy is the way to go. Obviously, diverse teams make better decisions, but your bar for that conversation should be, can you make a contribution? Do you have the qualifications to be at this table? And I've always believed that. And the thing is, when I was at the Board of Trade, we, over 3 to 4 years, achieved gender equity on the Board of Trade Board of Directors. So 36 directors is a huge board. But you know what? It wasn't difficult. There was no shortage of outstanding women business leaders who wanted to lean in and help make the joint better. So we get caught up in the performative philosophy side of this. Focus on getting good work done. You'll attract good people. And we've got an exciting future here in BC if we can do just that. And that's my intent.
Okay, I got one more slightly cheeky question, and I'll pass you back to Jim. You mentioned the old country. It does come up a lot. It still has quite a big influence, I think, in Canada. But we were talking about Adrian Dix and his announcement of the new wind turbines, wind farms, and we likened that to the strategy in Britain. And I just wanted to ask you what you think of that. What you think of Britain? Do you still monitor it? Do you watch their economic development, their energy development? Because Jim and I, we've talked about this a lot as potentially being a kind of lesson to learn from and to not do what they've done. But I'm interested to see what you think.
Well, the last company I ran before responding once again to the call of politics and public life, it was an international software company, and we had one of our major offices was in the UK, and we had to adjust year-end bonuses 2 years ago to do with the electricity costs that had gone up in the UK. It was shocking. And it was the cliche used at the time is that people in the UK, especially the elderly citizens and lower income families, were having to choose between eating and heating, which is a horrible cliche, but it was true. So I've seen plenty of evidence that there's things over in the UK that we don't want to do. I'm not a fan of the current government. I do stay quite close to it. My mom and dad immigrated, so my family's still over there, and I get over to the UK on holidays as often as I can. I'm quite comfortable there. Love watching the politics. It's never a dull moment in the UK. But on the energy file, yeah, I don't think there's too many lessons of duplication that are coming out of the UK at the moment, not with the impact it had on its citizens. And we don't need to freeze our citizens out in this country the way that was happening in the UK.
Back to me.
I'll hand it to you.
Uncertainty is like the biggest enemy here in British Columbia. Uncertainty is driving investment out of British Columbia. Uncertainty is driving our youth out of British Columbia. And uncertainty is even when we're trying to make decisions ourselves and what we're going to do with British Columbia. And I know that even in Kelowna here, people, they used to think property investment was a good idea here in the central Okanagan and the Okanagan. And now a lot of people saying, I got to pump the brakes. Albertans are saying the same thing. Uncertainty is kind of like the biggest enemy of British Columbia right now. How are you going to put the welcome mat out and say capital both from a finance side and from a brain power side is not only welcome in British Columbia, but needed and will be appreciated?
We are in violent agreement on the premise of your question. I mean, if you look at the stock markets as the cold-hearted judge of such things, when does this market move around corporate results? It's before they're announced, right? The uncertainty of it. It's whenever there is markets can deal with bad news. They can obviously like good news, but it's the uncertainty that kills them. So you're bang on. And it kind of goes back to a previous conversation, yes, largely to do with DRIPA, but also the regulatory approach that the NDP has taken. They do not understand or don't wish to understand the conditions that are necessary for people who have got capital to spend it here. More than any other time in our history, capital is fluid. It can go anywhere. You've now got domestic investment going. And what I mean by that is very wealthy people who live in British Columbia are not investing here anymore because they understand it well, and they're looking at the States, they're looking at Asia, and they're looking at Europe, they're looking at South America, whether that's forestry, where Canfor's closed 8 mines here, but continues to invest in the U.S. It's the uncertainty that kills you. So there's 2 answers there. One is the messaging around the tax cut I mentioned, the regulatory certainty in terms of major project approval, which is that second point of my 5-point plan, but also it's a regulatory burden. When I was dealing with some of the forestry executives in northern Vancouver Island up in Cattle River, I got a 2-hour lecture on the difficulty of the regulatory regime. Yes, DRIPA is a problem, but they have now got a waiting time for a permit for established forestry companies who've been doing this for decades. What used to take 4 to 6 months, which I still think is unconscionably long for an established forestry company to get a cutting permit for, again, we're using established relationships, solid First Nation relationships, that is now taking 24 to 36 months because the NDP has also changed the regulatory regime and they continue to change it. It's a moving target. So I was literally hearing comments like, we are hiring people to deal with the government changing the rules so often. And so many of these guys are just walking away. And that's part of that welcome mat as well. So you've got to have a tax regime that's attractive. You send a message that your investment is welcome. And you've got to have a regulatory regime that is respectful of the fact that every time you change a regulation, business spends money trying to figure it out, never mind adhere to it. So we've got to be more respectful of that. And sending that message will be a big part of getting that welcome mat back out as well.
Canada's been way more successful when the Western provinces work together. And in the last little while, we've had an adversarial relationship between British Columbia and Alberta and Saskatchewan. We look at Scott Moe. He sent Nutrien down to Washington instead of Vancouver. And, Danielle Smith and, David Eby has called Albertans treasonous. The relationship with Alberta and British Columbia, I don't think it's ever been worse on a political level. And Scott Moe. So how do you fix that relationship? Because, again, Canada is better when Western Canada is stronger together.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was actually a signatory when I was the Minister of Economic Development for BC. I was a signatory to what was originally called TILMA and then renamed to the New West Partnership. And that was an agreement between BC and Alberta. And then a young premier by the name of what was it, Brad something, in Saskatchewan, decided he wanted part of the action as well. And we had this amazing agreement with the New West Partnership that was signed by all three provinces. I signed it on behalf of BC. And it was exactly to do with economic development, lowering the trade barriers between the various provinces, and labor mobility so that skilled labor could move across the borders back and forth. And it was a terrific agreement. It worked awfully well. And we're now at the point where you see a relationship with Alberta that's very strained. Now I'm going to pause there just to make sure that you can still hear me because my video is frozen.
Hey, your video's frozen. Yeah, no, you're back now. Everything is back. So great.
Okay. Oh, and I was so inspiring too. I'll try again. I was just saying that, you know, I was part of the government and I was the signatory on the New West Agreement between Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC that does a lot of what you just discussed. It spoke to labor mobility, trade barriers going away, and economic cooperation. I think Manitoba should be added with the prospects of the Port of Churchill now being discussed. And I think that the West has to have a stronger law, and to do so collectively is the way to do it. There was a time, less than 20 years ago, where all the Western minds were looking, or pardon me, all the Eastern smart folk were looking west for the good ideas, for the economic inspiration. We can get back there, and I think we can do it better if we work together.
There's a lot of critics out there that, I mean, the Conservative, you're running under a Conservative banner, BC Liberal before. There's a lot of critics out there that are weary of BC Liberals. How do you kind of like, what's your message to them? Like, you know, like when they're saying we want a true Conservative, and you know like sometimes they're trying to say like the BC Liberals are more liberal than they are Conservative.
Well, I think they became that way, to be honest. I think that's a fair criticism for the last 6 or 7 years that they were there. I mean, it was a 17-year dynasty, right? And I left, thankfully, before it went in that direction. I was not there for things like SOGI and DRIPA and all the other things they did. When I was part of the BC Liberals, it was the free enterprise alternative to the NDP. And one of the reasons the BC Liberals changed their name is because 2 out of 3 of us were card-carrying Conservatives. Like my first federal Conservative campaign was when I was 10 years old in 1978 and delivering brochures on a Saturday afternoon for a guy named Dean Whiteway. Mom and Dad wanted me to get some exercise, and off I went. And all these years later, here I am. But I think it's a concern when you look at the last 5 or 6 years of that BC Liberal dynasty. I was gone by then. I wasn't part of that change. I didn't like the direction that was going on, and I was quite happy that I wasn't part of it. But in terms of my own pedigree here, I mean, I still sit on the Federal Conservative Party's National Economic Council. Pierre asked me to go on that after the last election, where I was an acclaimed candidate for Pierre. I chaired the local campaign in 2021. I've been raising money and recruiting candidates for the Federal Conservative Party for 25 years. So my own credentials there are not really in question. And I was proud of being part of a provincial government that had the hottest economy in the country, where we went from worst to first on every major economic indicator: wages, youth wages, unemployment rates, GDP growth, you name it. We were number one after being in dead last after booting out the NDP after they were here for 10 years. So I understand it's a wee bit of brand confusion, but a little bit of homework will put to rest any concerns about my political pedigree.
And then I guess the criticism of John Rustad was the fractures. I mean, he saw his party, he kind of like missed an opportunity when he was working with Kevin Falcon to kind of bring it together. And then the party even fractured even more, and he had a bunch, I think it was 5 people that split off. Do you have a plan to bring those people back in, or like how do you bring the fractures? I think we had Jonathan Kay on. Ian and I had Jonathan Kay on from the National Post, and he said that like they really need a Stephen or a Stephanie Harper to kind of bring the fractures of the Conservative Party together so that they can have a unified voice and win the next election.
Yeah, it's common knowledge that that's the biggest challenge for any leader is to keep a caucus together. Stephen Harper told me once that he said running Canada was easy, running the caucus was the big work. And and I think it's tongue in cheek as that may have been, but it's I don't think it's wrong. this is where I lean on my experience as a CEO. Like when I've done this 6 times, my expertise is stepping into situations that are highly dysfunctional, where they've got the wrong product, the wrong strategy, the wrong people, they're hemorrhaging money, and fixing it, which incidentally kind of sounds like BC at the moment. But the caucus itself, the big part of that skill that I bring to that table, it's largely HR. It's that ability to weigh in and get an understanding by listening to people. What are their priorities? Why are they here? And what are they hoping to achieve? We all want to make our communities better. Every one of those MLAs wants to make British Columbia better. And I think the way you achieve that caucus unity, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as people like to say. I spent a little time working with them last summer, and there are certainly some various points of views, but they're all within that big conservative tent. Like there's no radically outside edge views that I witnessed when I was doing some work with them. So I think the secret there is what I do with the business, actually. Spend the first period of time doing a lot of listening and understanding the motivations for those that are involved and looking for those patterns that are common. And they always happen. There'll be 5 or 6 common things that bind us all together. And they're going to be all common conservative principles. And that unity inside and outside the caucus, right across our membership, will involve taking the core conservative principles that bind us together. And there's 10 of them, but things like, as low taxes as we can have while making sure we deliver healthcare and education. The fact that you do better with your money than government does. The fact that whatever the private sector should do, government should not. The fact that government's job is to pave the way and then get out of the way. Low regulation, stay out of my way. The fact that government has no place in your bedroom or in your place of worship. That notion of freedom of choice and protecting others' abilities to make those same choices. And there's 3 or 4 more. If you take those core principles and you wrap around them a narrative, call it an election platform if you want, that has got some specific ideas of what's going to get done, to which you can be held accountable by not only your own members, but the voters of British Columbia. And you put some optimism in it and some hope and some reasons for our young folk under 40 to come back from Alberta. And those who are thinking of leaving to stay because they see a future here where they actually can afford to buy a house, find a doctor, get a school system that'll deliver for them, and get untreated mental health and drug addiction off the street. You paint that picture, and you will win the next election. And you don't have to vary from conservative principles one little bit.
My final question, before I put you over to Iain for a final question, is accountability. And we struggle. We can get the conservative MLAs and we can get some conservative MPs. We do get the odd federal MP. It's very hard from Liberals. But it's a struggle to get some NDP MLAs on. But we had Ravi Parmar on, I think, this week. But it's a struggle and it's a lot of work. Will you commit to being accountable to all media here if you gain power and become premier? Will you provide access to media, especially independent media like ourselves?
Yeah, I think you need to. I think the game has changed. I'm not a fan of the Fed.
I think we lost you again.
Financial as it is. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Sorry.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, my signal here is pretty strong. I'm not sure what's happening, but I don't think we have a choice, Jim. I think we live at a time now where people consume media differently, that the different pockets of our communities are getting their media from different places, and that we have to respect that. But you also do something very special, like this show that you and Iain are hosting right now. I love it. It's a long-form discussion. You ask thoughtful questions. You let people give long answers, and then you can go back and forth in the conversation. That doesn't happen in mainstream media anymore. It's not this unmedia back and forth is critically important. I commend you guys for doing it, because so for me, that's an easy yes to do this kind of thing, because even if it's something that we may have done wrong in the future, or something that you really disagree with, or that Iain really disagrees with, and you want to have a good back and forth on it, you give the oxygen, and you're not limited to 10-second sound bites or 120 characters on Twitter or X or whatever it is, which is a toxic environment on its own. That is a really important, I think, service you're providing. So yeah, no, I will be very supportive of that, because I think it's critical of maintaining the trust of the people that voted for you in the first place. People don't expect you to be perfect. We're all flawed human beings. But I think the magic in leadership and the magic in maintaining the trust of the electorate so that one term becomes 2, becomes 3, is to show that you're not afraid of engaging on issues that are a little prickly around the edges, that are a little bit confrontational, and you're not you're not afraid to say, you know what, we didn't get that one right. We should have gone at that a different way.
Iain, final question.
So a very, very nice, easy, soft question about China, mostly. David Eby's, he's off to China soon. And I just wanted to point out, Eby seems to almost have like a foreign policy, doesn't he? And he, with regards to the US, he's very vocal about the US. He's off to China, and he's very keen to drum up international business. I'm just wondering, would you do the same thing as Premier? And also on the China thing specifically, would you go there and wag your finger about foreign interference and things like that? Or would you just be the kind of neutral businessman and say, no, I'll leave that to Ottawa. They can deal with that stuff.
Well, again, it depends if you want to be a performative premier like David Eby and NDP and NDP premiers before him, or do you want to actually get stuff done? Foreign policy is driven by Ottawa. That's their job. I'm always very critical when people don't stay in their lane. Our lane is to drive economic benefit and success and make life more affordable for 5.7 million people in this province. So we'll follow the lead of Ottawa on the foreign policy because that is their job. My job is to make sure that every dime that can be invested into this province to grow our economy and get our resource sector back on its feet and reinstate confidence in our small business community who's suffering under the regulatory burden of this government gets back in place. We don't have time for the story right now, but there is a great story about a representative of the forestry industry who was down in the U.S. and the way he was treated by the Americans, the governors of those states. I'll meet people on the tarmac at YVR or in Kelowna or in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek or wherever, Prince Rupert. I'll go to the port and welcome those people who want to look at this province and say, we will grow jobs here. We will invest here meaningfully. That is the job of the premier of this province, is to kick open those doors, welcome people in, and make sure that jobs are created here. So I do believe the premier has a role to play. I was the trade minister for this province, where we saw our trade shift from America, where it was about 80%, like every other province in this country, down to 50%. And we did that by opening up markets in China, in South Korea, in Japan, and in India. And because we did, in the 2008-2009 meltdown of the markets because of the subprime fiasco in the States, British Columbia barely felt it, while Oshawa, Ontario had 100,000 jobs lost in that city alone. That is the job of the premier of this province, and it's one that I will take very seriously, and I'm pretty good at it.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to sneak one last one in. Is it Celtic or Rangers? Got to ask you that.
Oh, come on. I can lose votes over this, brother. Listen, I come from a culture where if you sit on the wrong side of the stadium, you may not get out alive. I'll answer the question honestly because you put it to me. I'm a Glasgow Rangers guy. As a little 8-year-old boy, my grandfather took me onto the grass at Ibrox, and I got to sit there on the grass with the groundskeeper and actually pick some of the grass. And it was a magic moment that every football fan in the world, regardless of who's their favorite team, would hear that story and go, wow, that would be pretty special. That was a great question.
I'll throw one more and then we'll call it. Elon Musk was in Bella Coola recently. And I think the only press he got was from Emily Loan, I think, and it was basically like eat the rich. Like, what a missed opportunity to invite Elon Musk and say, hey, Bella Coola is cool, but look at all this other stuff where you could do a whole bunch of things. What would would you have been on the tarmac for him when he landed in Bella Coola?
Well, if he was there on a business trip versus fishing, absolutely. That I honestly, I'm not kidding about what I said about that. When Elon Musk or anyone else, you got to separate the economic opportunity from people's opinion on the guy personally. I think he's brilliant. He's an interesting man. He's got some curious approaches, and I liken him a little bit to Steve Jobs. I was asked at one of the debates what the last book that I read was, and I referenced the Steve Jobs biography. And as a technology guy, I found it fascinating. Lots of things in there. I'm a big fan of Apple products for what it's worth. But I made the comment that I didn't really like the man. I thought he was unkind. I thought the way he treated his family was horrible. And I didn't think he was all that great to the people that worked for him. But that's separate from the brilliance. That's separate from his ability to create jobs and invest, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have to take that approach as well. We have to look for economic opportunity when it comes. And if somebody like Elon Musk says, hey, I'm dropping by, I'm looking at doing some investment, would you mind a cup of coffee? We should be walking over broken glass to take that cup of coffee appointment.
Yeah, we say on this show he's the most consequential man on this planet right now. So I mean, he's running.
I agree.
Leading companies and leading industries. I mean, there is nobody else doing that. Leading companies in the leading industries right now of the future. So yeah, what an opportunity. And I do thank you for your time, Mr. Black. We'd love to chat with you again. And it depends on what happens on May 30th, I guess, right? So again, May 30th. It's a different kind of election though too, right? So people vote and they vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You kind of put your votes in there, and then right now the Conservative Party is trying to verify those 42,000 votes as well. And I think they're having a little bit of it's a tougher process for some people, right, to get that verification.
It's a very interesting process. You're absolutely right. The verification process is now underway. Most of the campaigns, because I mean, although we are competitors, we actually do have large pockets where we get along and are quite friendly to each other. Most of the campaigns right now are shifting their resources from voter ID, which is the normal thing you'd be doing right about now, as finding a large group of people who say they're going to support you and then make sure they do. That's what this is about, right? But there's an extra step right now. It's find a large group of people who say they're going to support you, make sure they get verified so they can vote, and then make sure that they do. That middle step is a big amount. I'm blessed. I've got a terrific team. It's province-wide. It's well over 100 people smiling and dialing who are volunteers, and God bless them. Quick shout out to them. They're amazing. And they're right now shifting their efforts to getting people verified because this contest will, I suspect, be boiling down to who can get the most people verified in an environment where a lot of people, it's new to them or they're uncomfortable with it. But it is a ranked ballot. So to those watching, I'm looking for the honor of your first vote. But if you've committed to somebody else, getting number 2 would be marvelous.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Really Big Show. And we're going to finish our show here. So we're going to let Iain go. And we're going to continue. We got a little bit left in the show. So thank you, Iain, again, for joining us on the Really Big Show.
Iain and Jim, I'll come back anytime. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Well, there you go. That was interesting.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. A Rangers fan as BC Premier. That would be a big deal.
You can bring your jersey out. Or is that what they call it in soccer? Or, sorry, football? They don't want to make fun.
They call it a strip. So you'd have your Rangers strip.
Well, to follow... so that BBC one we were playing there was Trump taking a run at... the BBC report never answered his question either and just called them fake news. And
moved on.
I'm suing you. $5 billion. Never been a bigger lawsuit. You guys are fake news. And just next question.
But he's also suing. He sued so many, and he still speaks to them. Like New York Times, he sued, didn't he? And then he gave them this massive, I
think he got
2-hour interview or something.
Because he usually does the question, but he got distracted. Somebody else asked the question as he was continuing his rant. So okay. But here's this one here. This blew me away. She's back on the talk show circuit here on CNN. None other than Canada's greatest economic advisor, now the advisor for none other than Zelensky with our big bag of money.
Economic development of Ukraine. Christia, thanks so much for joining.
Great to be with you, Jim. And I want to be clear, I am an advisor to President Zelensky, but I don't speak on behalf of him or the Ukrainian government.
I understand. I just want to ask your views here. First, on this latest attack, it followed that brief ceasefire, which seemed to be largely intentioned to allow Putin to carry out his Victory Day parade. But now you have the largest drone attack of the war. Do you think beyond, and listen, this has happened, as you know, for more than 4 years, but do you think there was a message, given the timing with Xi and Trump in Beijing, that Putin was trying to send to them?
Of course. I'm really glad that you're highlighting the attack. We can't.
Okay, I can't take any more. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
I was just starting to get excited there.
I just can't do it. It's just
That's very different though, compared to when she was in the studio for whatever that was last time. I can't remember. Was that
she needs to get
NBC or something?
She's on the American networks all the time. Has she answered? Has she come on even on the government corrupted media to answer to a whole bunch of questions, which they won't ask her anyway? Christia, you love this show. Come on, just come on. Like you can go on there, and why don't you come on with us? Just chat, just have a chat.
Don't be a lurker, Christia. Come on, get involved. There's no need. There's no need to merely lurk.
Show your courage. We love the pearls. We love the pearls.
She is looking a little bit like a babushka, isn't she? Maybe it's part of her role. She's got to try and
fit in. So this in a little bit of market news here. Brookfield says it's amassed about a $2 million bet on SpaceX ahead of the IPO. Imagine it wanted to run that out there. Google has a massive bet on SpaceX, and these are like the this is SpaceX still a private company. Now there's talk that it's going to be a $2 trillion IPO. So
it's going to be a bonanza, isn't it? It's going to be.
It is like
going to be exciting.
One of the most consequential companies on this planet. SpaceX. It's crazy. And that $2 billion.
Isn't it just so typical? So typical that Brookfield, that Canadian gem headquartered in New York City, that they have got they're sort of elbows deep, not elbows up, elbows deep in this, not just an American company, but an American company led by a Donald Trump ally, and also a guy that the elite in Canada never tires of calling a Nazi and a bad ferret egg. But when it comes to their money, we'll put the money in. He can go and make us some money, but we're going to say everything that we possibly can about how evil he is and try and stifle his businesses in Canada.
And isn't it weird? You take his own tax money and that company goes invest in SpaceX, and then you take our tax dollars and invest in the Nova Scotia Spaceballs port. Just like a complete joke. Like this $2 billion, if this is a $2 billion investment, it's likely going to be worth like probably 20 billion or 200 billion. Like it's I think 100x, right? So 200 billion likely that $2 billion investment is going to turn out to be.
Yeah.
Like it's going to rain money for that, just that investment there. But in Canada, we invest 200 million, which is like, we also know in the space program, like I think Google had like $10 billion invested.
Wow. But that's the thing, like they create the Canadian elite. I know people find that word to be ridiculous when we're talking about people like Chrystia Freeland, but I mean, that's what she is in historical terms, political terms. The Canadian elite sort of goes out of its way to prevent companies like this and people like Elon Musk from doing this kind of thing in Canada. But then when it comes to their own money, they want to invest in those exact companies, those exact people, because they see how useful they are. I just really think it's worth dwelling on that weird contradiction. Like, why can't we have this kind of thing here in Canada? Why can't we just do what the Americans do to facilitate this kind of thing here? Then we can invest in Canadian companies.
This is what happened in China. There's a few people showing stuff because there's a lot of news crews that were there, so they're showing off some of the stuff here. This is coming to a place near you. Look at how China monitors its population. Watch this. So there's drones that are flying around, and then finding if you parked wrong, that it's identifying. It says you have like a couple minutes to move, or you'll get a ticket, and it'll show up on your phone in seconds. And they also have these drones that fly around and find you if you're not wearing a helmet, and then they just identify you, and then you get a ticket on your phone.
Wow. What would the equivalent be in Canada? They wouldn't be telling you about things like that. It would have to be something else, wouldn't it? Failure to do a land acknowledgement, perhaps. Mocking tampons in the boys' bathroom.
And look at this tech here as Jensen Huang gets wowed in China there. Let's look at this here as they show him a phone, and he's just like, you can't believe it. Play this clip here.
You can't hold it.
What? That's incredible.
Yeah,
That trifold phone. And we also own the really big show and a really big salute, and we're going to salute Jensen Huang running the largest market cap company in the world, NVIDIA. I think it's like $4 trillion now. And he's just out there in the market there wearing his trademark leather jacket there, having some noodles here. And play this clip here. Jensen just goes out there on his own and that's good. There's so many clips of Elon Musk and Jensen out there just eating noodles and different things and going out and around and just like treated like rock stars everywhere they went. There's like fans like of just taking pictures of them and all that stuff. But and let's not forget Jensen
noodles.
Jensen Huang is born in Taiwan.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be carrying a grudge. But I mean, there are a lot of people in Taiwan who are very pro the People's Republic of China. Like Taiwan's the Republic of China, but a lot of them are pro PRC. So it's not unusual. I don't know if that's the case with him. I don't know if that's what it is, but.
And Elon Musk again, the world's richest man, because of more stock options and shares and that. Plus, he's got a multitude of companies. If you add up Elon's companies, it's probably more than NVIDIA. Like if SpaceX and Tesla and Neuralink and Boring Company and all that. But we're not going to play the music in this because he does his own like TikTok or whatever you want to call it, where he puts his own montage together. He's recording like a tourist here. He's walking in behind Jensen here, and he does his own influencer style video. What's that?
I'm just looking at like the communists love a good square, don't they?
Look, you gotta have a good square, yeah.
Gotta have the big commie square. I think is that Tiananmen Square?
I think it is, yeah.
Very very interesting architecture. You can see a bit of the smog though, can't you?
Yeah, haze.
The pollution.
They call it the haze.
Yeah.
From
all the soldiers there as well.
That's the haze is caused by all the solar panels. Oh wait, maybe it's from the coal plants.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, lots of soldiers.
Very interesting this though. I mean, this has been a very, very warm meeting, hasn't it? It does kind of like the idealist in me is desperate to seize hold of it and say like maybe they could just be friends. Maybe we can all be friends. Maybe that really is possible. And how great would that be if we could do that, But
well,
I don't know.
The optimist in me as well thinks like China loves their tech. I mean, they're leading in many ways. Like you saw that phone that Jensen Huang's like, wow. And then the robots we showed you yesterday, they love technology and they're leading. Some of their cities are just like Shenzhen or whatever. I'm not the best, but some of those cities are just amazing. Like, and they're just modern marvels. And, I don't think they want that all to be crushed underneath bombs and that. So I don't know if I think for maybe the economy is more important than like Taiwan at this moment. But
well, the two kind of go together though, don't they? Because Taiwan, it was so strange how that has happened. This small island with a small population has ended up being, I mean, I can't think of an equivalent in history, but like basically one of the most important places on Earth because they produce semiconductors.
So they should put a tax on those so that they, you know what I mean?
That's what they should do, semiconductor tax. They
should call up Mark Carney and say, what do we got to do with this? Oh, you got to put a tax on that. And then you got to put a chip tax on it. And then you also got to then make, they take some of the chips and drive them into the ground and trap them into the ground.
Yeah.
And stop making the chips and maybe focus on Crocs instead.
And if they keep asking to build new factories, I don't know, this contributes to a lot of pollution around the world. This is what they put into those data centers, and those data centers are causing all kinds of environmental destruction, guys.
Why aren't they
Maybe we shouldn't.
Why aren't they doing that? On this day,
they're just kind of backwards.
We're almost done here. On this day in history, Pope Innocent the Fourth issued the. That's why nobody even cares about that, right? Nobody cares about that. Anything interesting in there? Abraham Lincoln signed legislation to establish the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This one's massive. Johannes Kepler confirmed his third law of planetary motion. If there are any Kepler fanboys out there, that's a huge one.
Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse made their first silent test appearance in the Walt Disney short film Playing Crazy. That's a big deal. 1928. MICKEYMOUSE. I used to watch it all the time.
George Wallace was shot.
Yeah, paralyzed.
In 1972 in that day.
There you go.
And L. Frank Baum was born.
The Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz man.
The Wizard of Oz. I would say that there's a lot of people here looking for a brain. June Carter Cash, country music legend, member of the Carter family and wife of Johnny Cash, died today on this day in 2003. And
Johnny was devoed, wasn't he? He's very sad about that.
And the big thing, it's Chocolate Chip Day. And none other than the Cookie Monster. You got that picture of the Cookie Monster? There he is, a Cookie Monster. Chocolate Chip Day. But if you're not into chocolate chips, it's also National Pizza Party Day. Hey?
What if you don't have any friends? You don't want a party. You just want pizza. Can you not have
a pizza
then?
Party yourself? Where's your favorite pizza? We'll end with that. Where's your favorite pizza?
You mean which brand?
If you were to get pizza from anywhere in the world, where's the pizza from?
To be honest, I don't really have a sort of favorite pizza place. I quite like Domino's, but I know people. Papa John's in America is very different from outside of America. So I'd say the big salty Papa John's in America, that might be my favorite one.
And if there's any Albertans still listening here, the best pizza of all is in places like Medicine Hat. You stop in a little side of the road there. The cheese is like the pizza is like yay thick, and the cheese. High Level Alberta has some of the best. I would say Alberta pizza. There's so many places in Alberta that make a really thick pizza. Yeah, come out here to BC and they make all this thin pizza and they tell you that it's good pizza and they sprinkle like a couple of pieces of dust on it and call that cheese. They burn it and they tell you that's the best pizza ever.
Or a little bit of parsley or something, rosemary, charge you extra.
Throw some like quail eggs on it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I must say those artisanal, whatever they call them, pizzas, where they're just like ridiculously thin. They must be like 200 calories for the whole thing.
Alberta Greek
pizza. In a wood-fired oven. I mean, it's all right, but it's not. That's not the best pizza, is it? Come on.
There was a Greek place in High Level Alberta at the zoo. Man, they made some good pizza. Just like the old Greek pizza. They're just crazy. But Domino's is this that's like a step above Little Caesars, buddy. With the real cheese.
Pizza. If Ontario viewers, I don't think Pizza is it outside of Ontario?
Yeah, I think there's even some here. Pizza.
Yeah, Pizza. Not the finest quality, but very cheap. So what can you say?
Best pizza right now, I would say, is at home. You can even do it on the Barbie. Turn it down a bit. Get some dough. Make your own dough or whatever. Fern's Pizza in Medicine Hat. Yeah, I think they something like the Hat. Like holy cow! If you're driving through the Hat, you gotta have pizza, man. Gotta have pizza if you're driving through the Hat.
You?
What's that? I
didn't know that it was a pizza hotspot.
Pizza, the center of the pizza universe. That's
really didn't know.
That's our show for today. Somebody sent us sausage rolls. Maybe Cindy will send us some pizza from Vern's there. There's no show on Monday because whose birthday is it? Some birthday, isn't it? Queen's birthday.
The Queen's birthday when?
Isn't it May Day? What's that?
Victoria Day. Is that supposed to be her birthday?
I don't know. It's her celebration day anyway.
Her
birthday. She can
memorialize.
Yeah.
So it's just to honor Queen Victoria.
Vic herself. I don't know. Charles won't get a day.
Yeah, Charlie's not likely to go there. When was she born? Let's have that. So she was actually born on the 24th of May. That would have been her birthday. So it's around about Victoria's birthday.
You know, wasn't Queen Elizabeth the longest running monarch? Isn't she the longest running monarch? And she hasn't gotten a day yet. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, they're starting to roll it out in Britain. They're starting to roll out a lot of things, like naming things after Elizabeth. I'm sure eventually that will come to Canada, if Canada remains a monarchy. That is.
Thank you for everybody that's contributing to independent media. You can also go to The Really Big Show, and you can find all other channels. You can contribute there as well. And if you have extra money and you want to invest in our ferret egg farming scam. We got to get the wording right because we're applying for federal grants for this, and we want to make sure that we get all the paperwork in. Because I'm sure if they can get $200 million for a gravel pad in Nova Scotia, we should be able to kill it with this ferret egg scheme. Because have you ever had a ferret egg? They're unique.
That's the thing. Most people haven't. Most people have never even had one.
Yeah, most people haven't. Most people haven't even seen one. We're going to change that. Say a no to King Chuck. There you go. That's what I say too.
King William, though, he might be a bit more popular when he takes over.
Well, Chuck didn't get much time because Elizabeth hung around for a long time. Chuck's like, when? When you going? When? Come on.
Dauphin.
Chuck's like, I'm going to die before this lady leaves. Anyway, that's our show. So no show Saturday, but we'll have some clips we'll put together. I think we're going to put some of Brian Isted's stuff together too, and some other good clips that we put together. We're trying to get the rest of the BC Conservative candidates on. I sent emails out, so we'll see if we can get them on because as we run up to this, we want to be fair. So if you're listening, we've interviewed most of them already. You can just reach out too, because I have reached out to most. Just send in that you want to come on the show. That was a good interview with Iain Black. So there you go. We'll see you on Tuesday. Tightwad Tuesday, right? Tightwad Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. Look at that. RC checked us some money. Thank you. May the Lord Jesus bring you all your desires and hearts. God bless you as well. And God bless Canada. And God bless the United States of America. How's that?
And bless King Charles III.
And if anybody needs some blessing right now, it's the United Kingdom. I think
and him specifically, Charlie Sausage Fingers. I think he needs our blessings.
If a King Arthur would be, he'd be just rolling around saying, "What the heck, boys? What the heck, boys?" We'll see you Tuesday morning, bright and early, 9 a.m. PST. Get some friends. Bring some friends. Bring some people that don't believe in us, like Charles there. Bring them along. Have them stuff them in front of it and say, "Watch this. Watch this." Anyway, cheers. Have a great weekend.